I'm not in a dancing mood.
I am.
Trolling.
What is good, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you all. It's a great day here on the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 6-game NBA slate and 5-game MLB slate. There's a lot happening right now. I am celebrating my guy, Russell Westbrook, passing Oscar Robertson for all-time leader in triple doubles. Eric's got a lot happening with his eyebrows over there. Greg's here to, be our comedic relief. Guys, how we doing today?
Better than Eric.
Eric, do you want to explain yourself?
My name's Anthony Davis. I play for the Los Angeles Lakers. I will not have LeBron James in there tonight. Therefore, I am a very good play all around the industry. I'm paying up 2 bets at once. So this one's just starting to get filled in. And we slashed this one.
Yeah, so let's say that, because I don't presume that everybody watches all our content. They know what's going on, but for reasons unknown, Eric's doing the tip-off show yesterday, and he just there was no pressure on him or anything. He just says hey,
out of nowhere.
If we get 1,500 likes, I will shave my other eyebrow to match the other eyebrow that he already butchered. Which, by the way, also, and we can get into the bet. The reason he has a unibrow also is because a separate bet that him and I made, but Spags kind of pressured him into it a little bit, where I think Eric's intention was to make it 1,500 likes for that show. And then Spags was like, no, we'll do it for the deep dive and for live before log also. And Eric kind of begrudgingly is like, okay, I guess. And then he just kind of got stuck with it. And Eric then also being good sport, he goes along with it. But I think this is really Spags' fault, is it not?
Yes, it's always Spags' fault. It's Jordan Klein and Spags' fault. It's never anybody else. I need Tyler and I need you in my life. I need no one else.
You're committed to this because you even have your Twitter handle at AntDavis23.
Well, that's my name. I'm Anthony Davis. What are you confused about?
Forgot we're dealing with an actor here who really gets into his character.
Oh, I played basketball at Kentucky. We made a great Final Four run. We were undefeated. It still bugs me to this day that we couldn't bring home the ship, but I make a lot of money after I left New Orleans. Thank God I got out of there. They built a city underneath sea level. Great idea. It's nice to be here in Los Angeles. It's fantastic. I get to hang out in the hills. I'm totally not in the Holiday Inn Express right now. That's my life.
The irony here, though, is that Eric's fiance is about to kick him out, and then he'll actually be living in a Holiday Inn Express. So that's kind of what's nice about this. Like he's already used to it.
Anthony Davis slept on the couch last night.
When is the wedding? Do we have time for those eyebrows to grow back in before then?
Anthony Davis is getting married November 13th.
Okay, good to know.
And then, by the way, so the Anthony Davis part of the bet. So Eric and I were doing live before lock together on Saturday. And since Eric is, a bit of a chalk donkey, we had Kelly Olynyk was projected as like the 3rd or 4th highest owned player on that slate, which was fine. Everybody was on Kelly Olynyk. I was less. So I said that Anthony Davis, I thought, was the best pay-up option as a big man. And I took so much shit for it. Eric was like, nah, he can't play with Andre Drummond. His points per minute are so down since Drummond came back. The chat's telling me never play Anthony Davis. So we made a little bet. Anthony Davis was only 2% owned on the slate. Who would score more fantasy points? I had Anthony Davis. Eric had Kelly Olynyk in his 35% ownership or whatever it ended up being. Now, there was a little bit of a price difference between them, but there was also a big ownership gap. So we just did straight up points. And I came out on top. Therefore, we've got that's how we ended up with Anthony Davis on the show.
If I had Kelly Olynyk win that bet, though, I would have made it so much worse on you. So this is honestly probably the best case scenario for me, is that I just have to paint on a unibrow. But looking at, this is just disturbing. Like this now with this, this at least looks clean now. I did it like in a clean fashion, but it was a hard streak. There is no hair there.
Anthony doesn't have the slits, so you're not totally Anthony.
This is just absurd. Have I ever won a bet? Not when it comes to Greg. That's for sure. 0 for 2 there. Well, I guess Spags too. Spags said that I look like the saddest boy on earth. I'm pretty close. This is I don't know. I thought it would be good for the brand. It's not good for the brand right now.
Team player Eric. Eric, what will you do for 2,000 likes? What can we get out of you?
Don't do this to him.
Hold, please. I think I'm going to take a timeout from the chasing likes department. Can't do it every time.
We actually have not a lot of time with you today, so we're going to have to speed through this. So let's focus and get back on track here. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. Really quick, let's talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to enroll cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. With over 500 player prop offerings, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry. And the best part is that you will receive a $20 first match deposit bonus today with promo code Awesemo. Be your friends, not the house. Download in the App Store and win big with player props today. Bad beats, besides Eric's look today. Last night, the only thing that took a beating worse than Eric's pride was anyone who faded the likes of Russell Westbrook and Domantas Sabonis, as both continued their torrid pace. How did you two fare in DFS and sports betting yesterday? Greg, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I was all in on Russell Westbrook yesterday. That went great. I did not have enough exposure to Domantas Sabonis, so it ended up just being overall about a wash of a slate for me. Also, the Cavaliers rotation yesterday was a total nonsense to project. So I was pretty high on Jared Allen. Instead, it ended up being Cabangeli who ended up playing about even minutes with him. So that was something that went a little bit wrong for me overall. It wasn't the best slate in the world. Certainly wasn't the worst slate either. Just price up Russell Westbrook already, DraftKings. What are we doing here?
They made it so that I didn't want to play. Anthony Davis did not play on their site as much yesterday because I went over to Fanduel, played a lot of Trae Young and a lot of Russell Westbrook. Had a pretty good night over there. But for whatever reason, Houston just keeps covering. I don't understand it. Why do they keep doing this to me? That is 6 games in a row. I have lost straight up bets betting against the Houston Rockets. I just don't know what do you have to do? They ruined 3 parlays that I had going. Yesterday was not good for Anthony Davis.
Isn't it? Our players, I mean, because I don't know all of the collective bargaining deals and laws or whatnot. NBA players are allowed to bet on games as long as they're not playing in them. I didn't know about. I thought they weren't allowed to bet at all.
Yeah, well, when you're a top 5 player in the NBA, put some respect on the name, and I do what I want.
All right. Well, it sounds like Anthony Davis overrates himself a little bit.
Anthony Davis does not overrate himself.
Anthony Davis talks in third person a lot.
Yeah. Well, my calf hurts today, but I'm gonna go put the team on my back like Greg Jennings. Nobody knows that YouTube video. Oh, Greg does. There it is. Yeah.
Anthony Davis might overrate Anthony Davis. You know who underrates him is Eric Lindquist.
I don't know who that is. He's meaningless to me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get to our NBA news. The Toronto Raptors have failed to reach the postseason play for the first time in 8 years. Since they have nothing to play for, usual starters Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby are all sitting. Anthony, which Raptors should we be looking to tonight as a result?
Yeah, so I know all those guys very well. I'm sad that they couldn't end up playing tonight. Big friends, Kyle Lowry. We tried to go get him earlier this season. Kind of wish we had. That would have been really, really good for the makeup of our team. Although Alex Caruso is starting to play very well. Really like his game here of late. But anyway, just looking across at the Toronto Raptors on who they have left, they have nobody kind of left in that team. I think it's a tale of 2 sites. Malachi Flynn really sticks out on DraftKings at 5,300 and 5K on FanDuel. That feels good. Gary Trent, FanDuel specific play at 4,900, garnering the most ownership. I don't know. Maybe the minutes could be a little bit limited, but you got to expect that he's going to go out there and be chucking. So I feel good about him. Kevin Birch isn't getting a lot of respect, and I feel like he should be getting a little bit more maybe on FanDuel. That's a product of having an 11-game slate where you want to pay up at center on FanDuel, if I was allowed to play on FanDuel, because, again, I play in the NBA, and it is what it is. But Chris Boucher, I really want to see him out as well. I think that would really boost Kevin Birch's profile. And if you get that news, that's the first reaction that I want to make is upgrade him. But otherwise, Jalen Harris, the last piece, 3,100 on DraftKings. Really hard not to like him. Might be a really good fantasy asset. We talked about him a lot on the Slate Starter. Well, I didn't. Eric Lindquist talked about him on the Slate Starter podcast yesterday with Rinpack. And Jalen Harris was the guy that they had brought up and talked about a little bit. He might actually be good at fantasy basketball. Played 29 minutes. We've got him over at Awesemo, the site, the best subscription service on the entire intrawebs, which, I frequent to go Google myself. To see what people are saying about me. And then I make up fake Twitter accounts because Kevin Durant taught me to do that. I am figuring out that the Jalen Harris might be a guy that you should be targeting even at 24.5 minutes. So if there's upside of 29, sign me up.
I like how Anthony Davis was a little coy at first, and he's like, Eric Lindquist, I don't know who that is. I've never heard of him. I find out that Anthony Davis regularly listens to Eric Lindquist's podcast, the Slate starter that he does at nights with the GOAT Rinpack. I mean, that's pretty big. That's a big listener. That would be pretty cool if he started promoting that on social media. You might get a few more people to watch.
Well, yeah, Rinpack, top 5 in the world at something. I'm top 5 in the world at something. So yeah, the kid, I guess I do remember him. He's meaningless to me.
Yeah, and top 20, but yeah, I mean, if he, it's whatever. I mean, not going to make an All NBA team or anything this year, but hey, we all have down years. And Anthony Davis, you do look a little bit like Fran from Dodgeball today. You know, I can't say the last name, but I'm looking it up right now, but Stalin Oskovich David Daviskitchi. You know who I'm talking about, right? Anthony Davis?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do. What a great movie. They don't make comedies like that anymore.
No, I mean, hey, but you know, you've got Space Jam 2 coming out soon. That could be that should be a comedy, right?
Yeah, hilarious. It's going to be great. I'm sure it doesn't look weird at all with the trailer.
You look like the girl from Hey Arnold.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Angelica? What was her name?
Helga.
That's it.
Good.
I can see
Anthony
it. Yeah.
Davis, put some respect on the name. Continue.
Yeah, Anthony Davis does look like a lot of fictional characters with unibrows. So I mean, I can't really add too much to what Anthony Davis said there. We have so many guys who are out for the Toronto Raptors right now. I mean, Paul Watson's out, Rodney Hood, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Aaron Baines, Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher is questionable tonight. Even if Boucher's in, it's hard for me to think he's going to play too many minutes because he hasn't played since, April 21st or something like that at this point. He's been out for a while with a knee injury. There's no incentive for the Raptors to play anybody at this point out. They're officially eliminated from the playoffs. So even if Boucher's in, he's probably going to play, like 15, 20 minutes. And that's probably even so just because they need to have a certain amount of minutes filled in the rotation. So my priority is definitely going to be with some of the cheap guys in addition to Malachi Flynn, who's kind of an obvious value play. But Yuta Watanabe, I think that he's a good value. And then Jalen Harris is also pretty interesting. I know that AD talked about him before via our friend Eric Lindquist. But last game for Jalen Harris, he played 32 minutes. He had a 21% usage rate. He everything right there. If he's going to be on the court and he's going to be willing to shoot with all the amount of cheap guys. Anthony Davis, is your eyebrow falling off?
It's itchy today. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I could imagine. I think some of that. Sometimes those eyebrows, they could be a little irritating. I don't know if they're meant to go on the skin, but anyway, yeah, Jalen Harris, if he could potentially start, or even so, if he comes off the bench, we saw them willing to play him extended minutes last game. If he's going to shoot when he's on the court as he did last game, then I like his upside. Because I mean, who else is shooting the ball amongst these guys that are active for the Raptors?
All right, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Grayson Allen have already been ruled out for the Grizzlies, while Jonas Valanciunas is doubtful. Greg, who on this team stands to benefit the most in your eyes?
Yeah. So also somebody brought up something I thought that was funny here in the YouTube chat is Colin here said, watch Eric /AD win a tournament tonight. Imagine if Eric wins a GPP with Anthony Davis in his lineup tonight. It would be all-time vindication. As for Memphis, I don't know that there's any one player that I'm massively interested in. If I had to roster somebody, maybe the minutes floor is a little higher for somebody like Kyle Anderson. Brandon Clark could end up in the starting lineup, but still, I think there's a lot of good value plays on the slate. And I think that the Grizzlies are probably just going to spread their minutes fairly thin because that's what we've seen from them all of this, pretty much all of this year. Like, this is a spot where I'd say, like, hey, maybe John Morant could go out and just eat up a whole bunch of usage, which is probably going to be the case, but there's so much value that I'm just going to build stars and scrubs lineups for the millionth time over the last few weeks. So if I had to roster one guy, I guess Kyle Anderson's the best for me on a points per dollar basis. Brandon Clark will likely end up picking up a bunch of ownership, but I'd rather roster the Raptors guys, frankly.
I wish I was playing Memphis tonight because I would absolutely murder this front court. Xavier Tillman wouldn't have any resistance. Brandon Clark, no shot. But I think sitting at 3,600 and 3,400 on DraftKings, they're kind of a product of this slate. DraftKings did a really fun thing, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but they have one player allocated for every $100 of salary from $8,600 up to $11,000. And it's $100 increments. It's only single players and nothing fixes. So like when we talk about stars and scrubs, you're going to have a corresponding stud to play with no matter what amount of salary you have left over. I don't know if I've ever seen that on a slate before with $11,000. Kayla, I'm very nervous about Kayla, whatever just happened there, but Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark, I think products of this slate, Kyle Anderson, going to be garnering quite a bit of ownership. I think you can probably, he's fine if he's a last piece in, but I'm not making him or Dylan Brooks any kind of a priority as a result of this news. But those front court minutes are definitely up for grabs. I think I'll take some shots.
Jordan was just throwing up some side-by-side pictures of you, Anthony, and it tickled me, but it's delayed. So my reaction was after the fact. All right.
What were they? What was it a side by side of? I don't know because I'm mostly just looking in our
oh my God,
our Zoom chat right now because I like looking at Eric right now. I have Eric pinned. Usually in Zoom I don't have it pinned. I just have it where whoever's talking pops up on my screen because I kind of feel like that's a good way to have a conversation where I'm looking at the person who's talking. Not today. I have Eric pinned. So what was the comparison?
I don't know who that is, but it's hilarious. Who is that?
It also looks she plays like for the scroll.
Oh, that's what I said
looks
before.
Like the lady, who's the lady?
That's
what I said
before.
In all those Adam Sandler movies with the unibrow. I don't know who this is. Okay, well, there's no way we're making it through all of the segments today.
Yes, we are.
All right.
I'm one of the greats.
There was some surprise news out of Boston with Jaylen Brown undergoing wrist surgery, sidelining him for the rest of the year. Does that impact any futures bets for you? And with Robert Williams out as well, are there any Celtics we can target to play in our lineups tonight, Anthony?
So one of the things that happened yesterday, and I think that this is a good sports betting topic to talk about, if I could bet on sports, of course, because I'm Anthony Davis. But in the event that I was able to, a lot of the odds changed. They took the Boston odds off the board, but they didn't take any of the other odds off the board. So when you get news like this, like Jaylen Brown's going to be out, like, yeah, they were a 7 seed and they weren't looking like they were going to make any kind of a run, but you got to think that that's worth at least a buck or two. And in the odds on the front runners, that's one team that's kind of like shorthanded on this side of it. I don't know. I think that it definitely bolsters a little bit of that top end between Brooklyn and the 2 seed. You've got Philly at the 1 seed, Milwaukee in the 3 seed. I think being able to bet on them to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals becomes a lot more interesting now that you basically have a team that they just don't have enough ammunition in Boston. They didn't probably have enough with Jaylen Brown in there. And so it's one less team really to be concerned about coming out of that play-in tournament. I think that it definitely helps some of the futures bets that you might want to be looking at those 1 through 3. They've adjusted a little bit this morning from what I looked at yesterday. I was interested in just getting more Brooklyn money in as fast as I possibly could, just to basically say, like, I already think that they're going to go out and win the East so long as James Harden can actually get back here at some point. This is very, very strange to me that he's not back yet, but that's just kind of what they're going to do with him. And they're going to ramp him up here next week and get ready to go for playoff time. But I think Boston, looking at them, Evan Fournier is really the guy that we finally saw a pulse from. He was battling with COVID, had some issues with that. Coming back to the Celtics, didn't look good here. But yeah, I think you have to be able to take some shots on him now. He really kind of stands out. And don't sleep on Marcus Smart. We know how the desire he has to go out and chuck. And, well, he's going to have the opportunity to go out and chuck. He's very, very low owned on this slate. I think he should be. It's an 11 gamer, but you don't have to get too thin. I think it's pretty straightforward, but Evan Fournier on both sides really sticks out.
So by the way, it was Fran Stalinovich who you were being compared in the picture of. That was the lady from Dodgeball I was talking about before. But anyway, as for the Boston Celtics, for the futures bets, it doesn't really change a lot for me just because I didn't have them as legitimate title contenders, a team that I thought had any chance to make it out of the East anyway. And if a team I'm already giving them 0% chance to do so, I can't go lower than 0. So it doesn't really change that. I did look for odds on Boston Celtics to miss the playoffs outright. I couldn't find them on any sports books. There's no books that are offering a line, and I still think they're fairly likely to make it. But if I could find any book that was putting up, like 20-1 or 18-1 or something on Boston to miss, I would be fine with that. They're probably going to land in the play-in tournament now, and I don't think it's totally crazy to think they could lose consecutive games, maybe like the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards or something like that. I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but I think it's possible. So if any books offer that, that is something that I have some interest in. As for other Celtics tonight, I have a moderate amount of interest in Jason Tatum, just because his usage is going to have to be so high for the rest of the season, and we have so much value that even if he's maybe a little bit overpriced, I don't really think it's that big of a deal because we kind of have an unlimited salary to play with today.
The Thunder have nothing to play for. Perhaps they should put me in. But Lou Dort and Ty Jerome are both questionable to play, with Teo Maledon being added to the laundry list of inactives tonight. Is there any late news you might potentially be trying to target on this team, Greg?
Yeah, and sorry, I got lost there for a second, but yeah, so
you got lost in chat, don't lie.
No,
you went down the
I
chat
totally got lost in
wormhole.
chat.
I'm calling you out.
I 100% got lost in the chat. First, somebody said you looked like Bert, which was something I hadn't even considered before, but now I say it, and it like that to me is actually that's the funniest reference anyone's made so far. Is if you're Bert and then I'm Ernie or something. I don't even know if I have to be a character. If I have to be Ernie, so be it. But yeah, Bert is, I think, the funniest lookalike right now because you don't actually look like him, but I kind of see the comparison at the same time too, because I never like Bert kind of has the bushy eyebrows, but then he's also kind of tanned. So I could see it, and I really like that, and I've been really hung up on thinking about that. But anyway, the Oklahoma City Thunder, like, what are we doing with this team at this point? They lose every game by 1 million points. So I don't even know what they're. What's that?
I just said easy.
Oh, I mean, I know you're wearing the jersey today, but what are we going to do? Are you going to ignore the recent results? They've lost by something like an average margin of 20 over the last 2 months. So even there's been games where like Moses Brown has started reasonably well, and I'd be like, oh, maybe he's going to have a big fantasy night, but he's not playing in garbage time for them right now. They get down big and then they empty the bench, like Jalen Horde's going in. So I find it really hard to reliably say anybody on this team is going to play big minutes, especially because we still have uncertainty with the injury report here. And then, you know, with Lou Dort and Ty Jerome, there's been no consistency to whether these guys would actually end up playing or not. Like there's been games where Lou Dort plays and takes a bunch of shots and then just gets ruled out for the next couple of games. He's questionable, like, oh, I guess I assume that he's going to sit. Then he ends up playing. I don't have any good reads on this team. I tend to think they're just going to play a really deep rotation of a lot of crappy guys getting like 20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah, Pokashevsky, though, would be the one guy that if I had to pick somebody from this team based on a lot of this news, I think it really speaks to the slate, like how selective you can be, because ownership is going to be condensed still on an 11 gamer, but you're going to have so many different value spots that emerge as the day goes on here. We're going to get the injury reports at 2:30. I'm going to be probable on mine. Got to really put the team on my back tonight. So I'll be ready to go for the Lakers. But otherwise, yeah, team like OKC, it's tough to really have a bunch of interest there, even with Lou Dort and Ty Jerome out, but maybe taking some shots on a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk down on the bottom end. But yeah, you got to be very selective on this slate. There's going to be better value that exists, but 3,200 is still 3,200 for a guy like Jalen Horde. So if you get a couple shares of him, I wouldn't completely hate it.
And now for our one-on-ones and these battles between stars. Which player would you rather have an NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? We're going to fly through these. Nikola Jokic and Giannis are your two most expensive plays on both sides and bound to be popular with the amount of value that's already available. Which one are you prioritizing on tonight's superstars and scrubs slate? Jokic or Giannis? Anthony?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would pick myself now. I believe when I was writing this earlier to come on this little scrub show that I was deciding to put Jokic and Giannis in there. Didn't want to talk too much about myself, but then my friend LeBron told me that he wasn't going to play tonight. And it became just, all right, well, I guess I'm going to have to side with one of these two. They're just projected so similarly. I think I got to take the Nikola Jokic route because I think that game just looks so much more competitive. I'm kind of surprised my friend Giannis, who I think is going to be, just a force for years to come. I think it's kind of surprising to me that he's going to play against Orlando on a back-to-back. They just got obliterated last night up against the Spurs. Or not the Spurs. Sorry. I can't even remember who they played.
It was
That's
the Spurs.
How frazzled it was. The Spurs. I'm correct. Yeah. See, I'm so right that, I won a bet finally with myself just now. But Nikola Jokic, going up against Charlotte, that interior of Biyombo and Cody Zeller, best of luck, gentlemen. Give me the MVP, and also make sure that you tune into Live Before Lock with the aforementioned Eric Lindquist, that little scrub. He'll be leading up to Lock with the 11 gamer that's going, being able to break down the news. But I kind of expect some Milwaukee news to show up.
Who is Eric Lindquist doing Live Before Lock with tonight?
I believe that he's doing it with Josh Engelman, who's
Oh,
not
Josh Engelman. Josh Engelman is not going to stand for any sort of this Anthony Davis nonsense. I'll tell you that much.
No,
This
he
is
will
this
not.
is not up his alley of humor. He would not enjoy this whatsoever. So for me, I'm gonna go with Nikola Jokic. I just don't know what to expect from Giannis from a playing time perspective tonight. I think AD there laid it out pretty well with. I'm kind of surprised he's even playing in this spot. Milwaukee's fairly locked into their playoff spot right now. Once they're not getting the 1 seed, to me, 2 or 3 is important in terms of who's going to get home court advantage between the Nets and the Bucks. But the Bucks should win this game really no matter what against the Orlando Magic. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis all play somewhere in the neighborhood of like 26 to 28 minutes. Milwaukee should still win comfortably. And then as for Nikola Jokic, something I really like about him, this is something that applies a little bit more to Fanduel than Draftkings, but there's so much value at every other position on Fanduel today. And the one position that doesn't really have value is center. So to me, it makes a whole bunch of sense to spend up at the center spot. And that's where Jokic really stands out. But Jokic for me on Fanduel and Draftkings.
All right. Also on the top end, elite point guards, Steph Curry and Luka Doncic, who are both playing in important games with huge playoff implications for their teams. If forced to choose only one, who are you rolling with, Curry or Doncic? Greg.
I'm going to go with Steph Curry. It's not a great matchup against the Phoenix Suns, but I mean, just based on what we've seen from Steph Curry over the last, 6 weeks now or so, it's just every single night, the usage rate is so ridiculously high for him, and he plays so many minutes. And I mean, even last night, I thought that the line was a little off in the Utah game. I was pretty surprised that I was a tight spread, but that proved to be correct. And I mean, just look at the recent games for Curry. The usage rates are ridiculous. 40%, 48, 39, 41, 41, 43, 42. As long as this game is close, which the spread suggests it should be, Steph Curry is going to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 36 to 38 minutes with a usage rate over 40%. He's going to lead the league in scoring, and it's Steph Curry to me, mostly because of the situation the Warriors are in right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's got to be. Luka Doncic still upset about the fact that Sunday he decided to go nuts hunting. That wasn't very nice of him to go and do that. So definitely going to have to be on the side of Steph Curry here too. Everything Greg said was very on point. He can, I guess Alex Caruso / Awesemo Baker. We already have 2 guys there. Eric Lindquist and Anthony Davis. Feels good to be a 2-1 here too. You won't see us in the same room here in LA, but pretty sure Steph Curry's the guy you want.
The Pistons, Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart are both garnering quite a bit of ownership on FanDuel right now. Is there yet another team that could be severely shorthanded if Josh and Frank Jackson can't give it a go tonight? Which of these 2 teammates do you prefer in tonight's tilt with the Timberwolves, Bey or Stewart? Anthony.
So I think it's got to be Saddiq Bey, and it's just more of a positional thing. Power forward looks like it's going to be eaten up by a lot of, you have top end pieces with Giannis, with Sabonis, with some of these other guys, and you have some bottom end pieces with Clark and Tillman. And I think mixing and matching them works out pretty darn well over on FanDuel, looking at the power forward position. But then going to a guy like Stewart, yeah, he can definitely get there production wise, but not a big fan of making that shot. Also, here you go. I did pay up my bet. I'm just letting it be known. Somebody decided to call it out and say that I thought I was supposed to shave my entire eyebrows. That was not the bet. The entire bet, the unibrow, the slit, man of my word. Anthony Davis is a man of his word.
Other than Eric breaking character there for a second, the other thing I like about that too is somebody came on the stream to look at this and be like, "Why isn't Eric paying up his bet? What do you think's going on here? Somebody thinks this is how you look every day. Is
another day on the tip off."
Oh my God. Good thing the show's 40 minutes today. I have 15 minutes left of misery. Oh man, I'm getting through it. What actually happened, to full disclosure, I accidentally X'd out of all my tabs. So I had none of my information and none of my other things, but I'm a top 5 player in the NBA and I'm going to go it out. I'm just going to go it out.
Yeah, hey, listen, AD, I've had that happen to me many times on shows before. I am not unfamiliar to that. So one thing, a little bit of a side note here, but I was told because of AP formatting, I'm no longer allowed to use players' first names in articles. I can only use their last names. And of course, the first things I have to write today about the Pistons, now Frank Jackson and Josh Jackson, are both questionable. And it's like great. I was just given this editing note. What do I do with this information now? But that aside, we still don't know if these guys are going to play or not. And if Josh Jackson and Frank Jackson are both in, then to me, I think that Saddiq Bey is going wildly overowned. So I think kind of the assumption right now from the public is that Josh Jackson and Frank Jackson are both going to be out. If that's the case, sure, go ahead and roster Saddiq Bey, but I don't know if that's going to be the case yet. As for cheaper guys, AD probably doesn't know about this, but Eric Lindquist and I have had a few conversations about Saban Lee over the last couple of weeks.
True.
And with Saban, with Saban Lee, he's been somebody who his minutes have not been quite, I think, what we've expected on some other slates. But for today, if there is no Frank Jackson or Josh Jackson in the lineup, I think it's probably about time that we're going to see Saban Lee start to play consistent minutes going forward. Frank Jackson got hurt early in last game, ended up leaving. Saban Lee played 32 minutes, a tie for the most he's played all season. And if there's going to be no Frank Jackson, given what we saw from Saban Lee play last night, I think he would be the value play to go to. And I've done a really good job trying to keep a straight face for this, and I kind of broke a little bit right there. There was, I don't know.
It.
Yeah.
I felt it. I have not broken once, and I'm the one who's, well, part of it is that I have nothing to laugh at. And it's just sad. It's sad for me.
Okay, good news. Laffy has given us 5 extra minutes. How about that?
Oh, goody. 5 more minutes that I get to be on camera where people screenshot everything that I do and every reaction.
Did you see my tweet?
Oh, you looked more like Fran in that. Can you do that face one more time?
No, I saw the people. Damn it.
By the way, Anthony, you need to change your settings on Twitter so that people can tag you in pictures.
Yeah, it's Ant Davis 23. It's not that hard.
No, your settings are locked. You can't tag you in pictures.
Oh, it's really too bad. It's almost like I did that on purpose.
I'm usually against people tagging athletes on Twitter and complaining about this or that and saying like, hey, here's what happened in my fantasy matchup today, or here's what happened in DFS. Here's why it cost me money. If people are actually going to send this picture to Anthony Davis, I'm fine with it. I think this is the situation where it's okay to tag athletes.
Okay. All right. We are going to head to the diamond for biggest bet. Before we do, I had a really great idea that came to me while we were doing one-on-ones. Eric, I think that we should have the chat suggest who you should be in character for once a week on the show, and you just need to do the entire show in that character because this is a lot of fun. Well, do we like this idea or no?
I'll talk to Eric. I'll have my agent get in contact with him.
Silly me. Okay. Ask Eric because I think this could be a fun segment that we do weekly.
Well, anyway, though, but doesn't AD's agent have to be in contact with Eric's agent? Like, is Eric really that accessible?
Yeah. I mean, let's be serious. Eric Lindquist is just sitting at home, just doing whatever, eating Chipotle on the couch. That's literally all he's doing every day.
I had no idea.
I'm out putting the team on my back, carrying a city of Los Angeles through a tough time last year with Kobe Bryant and a pandemic, rising my city to the top. That's what I do. And Eric just sits.
Okay, chat. Let us know who Eric should be next week. All right, biggest bet. It's time to head to the diamond for some of the top bets and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate. Which of the top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Adam Duvall plus 280, Acuna plus 300, Mike Trout plus 320, Alvarez plus 320, and Stanton plus 330. Greg.
First, I mean, if we're just going to answer the question, literally biggest bat, let's give it Eric Lindquist, who had the stones to show up with his face mutilated. And also, I've been pushing this hard, guys. If you don't do so already, go follow @Eric Lindquist on Twitter, just because he's going out here. He's really for no reason whatsoever, just placing these crazy bets that are minus EV for him just for your own entertainment. So go follow @Eric Lindquist on Twitter. He doesn't have nearly enough followers. I know that Anthony Davis does not like Eric Lindquist at all. That's kind of the vibe that I've gotten from this. I also think there's a little bit of self-pity from Eric Lindquist, who, kind of breaking walls here where he's a little unhappy with himself. So therefore, the characters he's playing also does not like Eric Lindquist. But do him a favor, go follow him on Twitter. As for the biggest bat in the MLB tonight, give me Mike Trout, who Eric and I were talking about right before the show started. And I mean, he's having such a ridiculous year, and it isn't even getting talked about just because we assume it to be the case at this point, where when you see Mike Trout with like a 220 WRC plus, you just kind of go like, hey, that's what Mike Trout does. But he's on pace to have the best season of his career. He's looking at a year right now where he's somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 wins above replacement and just absolutely smashing the league in basically every single counting stat, all of the total advanced net metrics in terms of wins added and runs added. So, I mean, Mike Trout, to me, he should basically be the favorite to do everything on every single slate. So, I mean, just the idea that there's guys with better odds to hit a home run than him today is a little off to me.
So WRC plus is a number that you like to look at for players. And Mike Trout has had multiple MVP seasons where he's been like right around 180, 188, which are just ridiculous numbers for such a statistic. He's at 221 through this 2021 season, which is just, I'm laughing because he's just so much better at his job than any of us, including myself, which is really hard to admit because I am one of the true greats. But, top 5 in the NBA, he is top 1 in MLB and has been for 10 years. And it just comes down to looking at what he's capable of doing on a baseball field all around. It's impossible for me to not, if I'm getting longer odds than on him than Adam Duvall, I'm going to take Mike Trout.
Okay. Biggest arm. Which of these top 4 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet that you like? We've got Peralta, 8.5 strikeouts, Buehler, 7.5, Bumgarner, 6.5, Ohtani, 6.5, and Cease, 6.5, Anthony.
So I'm absolutely in love with Shohei Ohtani, and I'm not ashamed of anybody who knows it. We hang out here in LA quite frequently. He's good people, but he's got his splitter working again. The splitter is the most unhittable pitch in baseball. Right now, batter's going up against it 0 for 19 or 0 for 21 with 19 Ks when he faces it in a 0-2 pitch or in a scenario with 2 strikes. The swinging strike rate just starting to go up. Yeah, he's been giving up hard contact here and there this year, but if we're targeting Ks, taking the over 6.5 sounds lovely to me today.
Yeah, give me Dylan Cease, former top prospect in baseball who really took a little while to get going, but now in his 3rd full season in the big leagues, he finally looks decent. He's striking out 11.87 hitters per 9 innings this year. The control has been a little bit of an issue, and that's kind of been the case even throughout his time in the minor leagues, but the stuff is so good. Average fastball velocity, 96.4 miles per hour this year. And you look at his 2.37 ERA, the underlying numbers, 3.09 expected ERA, 2.81 FIP. I mean, I just look at all of that, and I think Dylan Cease, when you consider he's a young pitcher, he was really highly regarded coming into the big leagues. He looks like somebody's breaking out to me right now. And so with that in mind, I think that he's somebody who deserves to have a total of more than 6.5 strikeouts for tonight. So give me the over on Dylan Cease.
That is going to do it for the MLB for us today. Let's head back to the NBA for No House Advantages prop or not. Here are some of No House Advantages props of the day for key players. Guys, do we like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? First up, my guy, Michael Porter Jr., 12.5 points plus assist, Greg.
Is that number right?
I don't know. This is what
absolutely
Anthony
is. It absolutely is.
All right. Well, that is the easiest over of all time. Like, I was looking at that as it came up. I was like, there's no way that's correct. 12.5 points. But like that number should be well north of 20. So that number is so far wrong. Like even Kayla, who as biased as could possibly be about Michael Porter Jr., and in a positive way, like, I mean, I'm just baffled by this number. It doesn't make any sense. Michael Porter. Yeah. When's the last time Michael Porter Jr. scored less than 12 points in a game? I'm just going to
hot second.
Off the top of your head, AD, do you remember a game you were playing against him where he scored less than 12 points?
Maybe like January 11th or something. I have no idea. More than likely. I mean, I'm sure I shut that little kid down.
Against Milwaukee, a game that was blowout, March 2nd. That is the last time he scored less than 12 points in a game. So, I mean, to me, this line is so wrong. I thought that Eric Lindquist, who I know Anthony Davis doesn't like him, so I just assumed that he made a mistake when he was writing some of these numbers down in the run sheet. It seems like Eric's made a lot of mistakes lately, so I thought that was the case, but apparently not, Anthony. Do you see any way that he scores less than 12.5 here?
I mean, if I was guarding him, he'd score less than 12.5. But otherwise, I feel pretty good about the over here against a AAA Cleveland Cavaliers team, or sorry, a AAA Charlotte team. Charlotte Hornets, doesn't even matter. None of those teams matter to me. Michael Porter Jr. over of 12.5. Yesterday, you had Colin Sexton under of 9.5. That was for 3-pointers made. That was a fun one to target. But this might be even a little bit better. Michael Porter Jr. 12.5 points. Sign me up.
Next, we've got Evan Fournier, 17.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, Anthony.
So prayers up to Jaylen Brown, my boy. Very, very sad to see him have wrist surgery, but I've been through my own injuries. I understand what that's like. So hopefully he can recover, come back strong, just like I did. I'm coming back strong and making the push to the title this year. But Jaylen Brown, with him out, Evan Fournier has got to be the guy. I didn't necessarily like that scrub in Orlando, but he's starting to play a little bit of basketball there in Boston. We hate the Celtics here as Lakers, but hard not to have some interest in Evan Fournier taking the over there.
Yeah, I agree, especially with Jaylen Brown out for the season. It's good to see Anthony, who, even though the Boston LA rivalry, still showing respects for the rivals. And I mean, everybody likes Jaylen Brown overall, one of the better guys and better players in the NBA. So definitely sucks to see him go down. But with him out here, I mean, Evan Fournier is going to have to play an extended role for the Celtics. I expect his minutes to go up, his usage is going to go up, his playmaking responsibilities are going to go up. So this number isn't quite as far off as the Michael Porter Jr. one, except it's pretty far off.
Last, we have Devontae Graham, 29.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, Greg.
Yeah, well, first of all, we don't know if he's playing. And I think something that is notable about the props and no house advantage is if a guy is out, don't just go and take the under because it counts as a loss if the player's out of the game. But if Devontae Graham is in, this is such an easy under to me because the last time we saw him really active and playing big minutes, you have to remember that even though he had extended usage, that was when Charlotte was really banged up. LaMelo Ball was injured. So now that LaMelo back and at full go, it's hard for me to imagine that Devontae Graham is going to play a significant role when he's in, especially because after the long layoff, he's probably going to be limited in some extent. So pretty easy under here for Devontae Graham.
Yeah, that was the important thing to talk about. Devontae Graham, if he is out, do not play him in your lineup because that's an automatic 0, and you do not want that. That is hard to win a tournament with in any regard. And so Devontae Graham taking the under here, if he is active, feels really, really safe. You get Ball back. You get Terry Rozier, who's been playing at a high level. Brad Wanamaker's playing some minutes here and there. So Malik Monk is back in the fray. Caleb Martin. So many guys on Charlotte that can take minutes away from Devontae Graham, that can take opportunity away from him. So this is a big number that I believe was kind of, with all of those guys out, a little bit more relevant, but not right now. Definitely an under if he plays.
And as always, friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports. Just download the No House Advantage app today and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. That takes us right on into good dog, bad dog. Do we have sound effects? I don't know. Oh, okay. In real life, there's no such thing as a bad dog. In betting in DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Anthony, give us your good dog.
I don't necessarily really have a bad dog. So looking at the board, I mean, it's an 11 gamer. A lot of guys in play here today. I have a lot more bad dogs than I have any good dogs. Give me Golden State in a game that matters a lot more to them than maybe Phoenix, but Phoenix still been playing a little bit better here of late. But that line, there's been some sharp money coming in to move it down from 5.5, closer to 4.5 here. There's a couple books. If you go over to Odd Shopper and take a look over at it, I think maybe still getting on that Golden State side of it, as you know, we're getting closer to tip off of that. It's not till 10 p.m. Eastern time. Already dropped a point. I think still at 4.5, there might be a little bit of value, but nothing I'm like super enthusiastic about.
Here's one that I think might raise 80's brow there. How about the New York Knicks playing on the road in Los Angeles? I know that you're back and playing well again, and we know that because you wouldn't even be here if you weren't playing well right now in a weird way. But I mean, the Knicks, they've been really solid this year, especially on defense. Even in games they've lost, they generally kept it close. And now we're seeing them playing the Lakers. LeBron James officially ruled out tonight. So AD, certainly he's been playing better as of late. But even so, I don't think the Knicks should be underdogs in the spot. The Lakers on the whole have kind of been terrible in the time that LeBron James has missed. And you consider the Knicks, who are a established like mid-tier playoff team at this point, one of the better defensive teams in the league. I think the Knicks should actually be slight favorites today.
All right, we have no time for bad dogs. Good dogs only today. Greg, give us your make or break and your fade of the day quickly.
Make or break, probably the Toronto Raptors value. I view this as a really similar situation yesterday to the Cleveland Cavaliers. With just so many guys out, there's going to be cheap value. And I did a horrendous job of projecting what the rotations were going to look like last night with the Cavs. And I don't think this is any easier with the Toronto Raptors today. There's going to be value here. It's definitely going to be something that makes or breaks a lot of lineups. And it's also something that's pretty hard to nail down because there's no precedent for the Raptors rotation in this situation.
Yeah, so Toronto and the Grizzlies, I think you could put them together too. I assume we're going to get some more value that shows up, but I'm going to say the studs that you end up paying up for. This is a great day. I love Awesemo. I love the tools of the boom bust tool specifically. On my days off, I like to throw in some lineups, and I use the boom bust tool to be able to really like figure out which studs are going a little bit lower owned. There's a lot of leverage. I talked about how there's an individual player that you can target from 8,600 all the way up to 11K, kind of mixing and matching some of those studs and taking some shots on some guys with some upside on that top end. Really a strong way to go on this slate.
Anthony, fade of the day.
Definitely Greg's take on the Knicks. I'm going to just annihilate them.
And Greg, your fade of the day is?
The Lakers.
Oh. All righty then. Well, this was a highly entertaining show. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you to Greg and Anthony for their insight today. Never a dull moment. Don't forget
the locker room.
Yes. Okay. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. The NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Locker coming your way next on the same stream. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern on the tip off. I'm Kayla Knierim. Have a good one.
Doing flexing them guns. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran. On the Twitters at Lafay_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by Adam Scherer 5 days a week here on the show at ShipMyMoney DFS. What's going on, brother? We got 11 games to dive into and some wild ones in the final week of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about today. 11 games feels like the most we've had in a really long time. I was surprised when I opened up the slate this morning and saw I had 11 games to write about in the deep dive. But yeah, there's some pretty fun games again today.
There are 11 of them to be exact, and we're going to get through all of them. We got about an hour and 10 minutes to do so. Coming up after the tip-off, man, poor Eric Lindquist, man. That is brutal. I didn't know he had the AD bet too.
What's that?
I said I didn't know Eric had that Anthony Davis unibrow bet either.
I didn't know that was a separate bet. I thought he just did that because he wanted to.
Yeah, I think the worst part of the bet would have been impersonating AD for an entire show, but he did that all on his own. We got 11 games to break down. We are, as you know, happy to have all of you guys with us as well. Let's bump them likes up as high as we can to kick this off. We appreciate you all tuning in every single day of the week, making this part of your routine. Subscribe to the channel as well. Just make this a daily occurrence. You jump in, you hit the thumbs up, you kick back, and you check out the show, and you listen, and we have a good time while talking some DFS NBA. If you want to get notifications for when all our shows go live, hit that bell. And you want to join the channel? Got a lot of people joining. There's so many badges in there. You just love to see it. Hit that join down below. It's $2.99, right? Not much to join, get the badges, get the emojis, and some other perks along the way. So let's dive into it. Before we do, Adam, I'll ask you the same question as always. Crazy slate, huge slate today. One of the bigger ones we've discussed in a while. And aside from all of that, there's going to be a ton of value. I mean, Toronto's got, last I looked, 5 of the top 6 owned players are going to be from one single team. Joel Embiid's questionable. The Joval news is significant, coming in doubtful with Jaren Jackson already ruled out. And that might not be all of the news we get today. I don't think it will be, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, probably won't. We also got they had said LeBron was probably going to play today. Now he's not going to play. It doesn't seem, according to Woj. So you have that. You know, the Lakers still looking like they have recently. Oklahoma City, we're waiting on some pretty big news with. We know Theo Maledon's out, but Ty Jerome questionable, Lou Dort questionable. You have a potentially shorthanded OKC team against Sacramento, which is always fun. So yeah, I mean, it all kind of just comes back to very clearly a stars and scrubs slate. Again, it will be pretty much every slate from now through the end of the season without much of a doubt. But as the slates get bigger, it becomes even more so the case because you just get more value that, you know, it just makes it increasingly likely that some value guys are going to do well because there's more of them. So then you also, you know, have all the pay up options on the slate. So I think pretty clearly a spot where you're going stars and scrubs.
You know what I find interesting about this slate, though, and I think you'd agree, is when it comes to stars and scrubs, usually there's a handful of top price guys, you know, the upper echelon of players north of 10K, where you say, okay, you know, that ownership is all exceedingly high because why wouldn't you play them? It's not really the case here with a lot of them. You know, Curry's up there and a few other guys are, but you have guys like Embiid at 5%, Anthony Davis coming in with very little ownership, even with LeBron out. Much of that, of course, to do with the fact that his prices come up a lot. Giannis at 13%. I have some reservations there, no doubt about it, but only a couple of the top tier players, because there's so many of them today, are really getting any ownership even close to 20%.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and there's no Russell Westbrook. I mean, you can, you know, there's some that look better than others. You know, you mentioned Steph being the highest owned out of the group, and I think I agree with that. But there's no one guy that you look at and you're just like, the only way he fails is if he gets hurt or the game's over at halftime, which is, you know, essentially where we're at with Westbrook right now. And that's why you're seeing so much ownership to him. When he's not on the slate, you're going to get it more spread out because even though, you know, maybe Curry projects as the best, he's not by such a wide margin over the rest of those guys that he's going to get, you know, 60% ownership or something.
What do you think Westbrook will be priced at next game?
11. I agreed with your tweet the other day that he might get to 11-1 on DraftKings.
It's crazy.
I mean, they do have the off day, so maybe they'll actually get on it and price him up. But my thing is, like, if they were inclined to do that, why didn't they do it a week ago?
I know. It's another thing too is at this point, you want to talk about an exercise in futility. trying to time the bad Westbrook games and getting on the fade there. Like if it was 13K where he should be on DraftKings, I'm all on board with that, right? Because if he has that 60-point game and you're paying 13K for him, or I'm sorry, you're fading him at 13K, that could look really good. But at 11K, the likelihood that he fails is so low. And we saw that again yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, because at 11K, failing is like, I mean, realistically, you need him to score less than like 55 points to like really put you in a bad spot. And when the guy's projected for 65 or 70 points, he's just not, it's not happening outside of injury or a really weird game. I mean, obviously when he's like, he was 90% owned in the $200 three max. He was 82% in the big $20 on DraftKings. That's definitely getting to a point where you can just say, okay, screw it. You know, there's no point. It's not even that I think he's going to fail. It's just, there's no real point in playing him. You know, you could at least make that argument. I disagree with it, but you know, still it's at least, you know, enough ownership, but yeah, it's just it's a stupid price point. Hopefully they increase it.
You and I aren't narrative guys either, but the day that he can break Oscar Robertson's record, I kind of look at that as, you know, maybe he's got and Bradley Beal is out.
Yeah, it all just, I mean, yesterday it all just kind of set up like that. You know, obviously we talked about it, like, especially because, you know, rebounds and stuff, like that's an effort stat. And so not, you know, Westbrook always tries, but then it was just like, okay, so he's going to try, I guess, maybe even harder here, and Beal's out. It was dumb. All
right, let's jump into it. There's a lot of games on this slate, a lot of teams that just aren't good. So
yep.
We're good right now as far as time goes. At least I'm telling myself that. But you got Denver and you got Charlotte. Let's dive into this one first. The Nuggets 5.5-point favorites on the road, 223 total. Just the usual guys out. Barton's still out. Dozier was ruled out. Monte Morris is questionable, though. He could return for this game. I don't really think it has a huge impact one way or another. This game in general, though, between the Charlotte Hornets and the Denver Nuggets, not exactly a fan favorite based on ownership right now. Jokic is getting some love on that side. And on the other side of this one, where you're looking at a Charlotte team that's still dealing with injuries or COVID illnesses or protocols to Miles Bridges and Cody Martin being out, Devontae Graham questionable, their ownership is very low right now as well. So both sides of this not getting a lot of love.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. The Charlotte side, I don't think really has a whole lot here in the context of the entire slate. You know, like, of course, there's guys that can have, you know, big games, but there's nobody that really stands out to me, I don't think, from the Charlotte side. The Denver side, you know, a little bit more interesting. You have Jokic at $11,000 on both DraftKings and Fanduel. He's averaged 1.7 DraftKings points per minute, 34 minutes per game without Jamal Murray. We saw him play 37 minutes last game, so that was good to see, to at least see that, you know, it's in the range of outcomes still. But more often than not, you're getting 34, 35 minutes against, you know, a Charlotte front court that he should have plenty of success against. Michael Porter Jr. on Fanduel, I think, looks great. He's only $7,100 there, so he's $1,400 less expensive than he is on DraftKings. He's averaging around 35 minutes per game without Murray, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. So I think he looks really, really good on Fanduel. DraftKings, I think it's tougher to get there. And then you mentioned Monte Morris being questionable. If he's in, it makes Austin Rivers, I think, look a bit less appealing. If he's out, Rivers still isn't super appealing, but at 4,200 on DraftKings, there is, you know, a chance for him to play 33, 34 minutes and potentially be a decent value. But I think there's still going to be better value on the slate. So it's mostly Jokic on either site and then Porter on Fanduel for me from this entire game.
Alan King said Westbrook had a bad game against ATL yesterday. If you watch the first half, he started off slow.
He did.
Yeah. Well,
he only had 30 DraftKings points at the half, which is slow.
I mean, a bad game isn't a bad quarter or a bad half. Like, and that's not even a bad half. We're not going to talk about Westbrook.
He scored 83 fantasy points.
That's pretty deep. When you have a 20-20 game and 13 rebounds or 17 rebounds, whatever it was, I'd say pretty decent. And what about the Charlotte Hornets?
Not much there. I mean, I don't think anyone needs me to tell them LaMelo Ball or Terry Rozier can score a lot of fantasy points, but Denver's not a fast-paced team. So this is a game in general that shouldn't be very fast-paced. And then you just have these guys both priced up. You know, Rozier's salary has come up, 8,100 on DraftKings, Ball's at 8,700. I think it's just really, really difficult to get to those guys when there's so many guys to pay up for that are, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 more expensive. And then there's a decent mid-range and a lot of value tonight. So I think it's really tough to get to the Charlotte guys, unless you are just, you know, sort of throwing a dart at Ball or Rozier and hoping they happen to have a monster game.
Someone said Westbrook's 12-4 tomorrow on DraftKings. And his salaries are out. So. Yeah, that would make sense. Minnesota and Detroit. Like I said, we're going to rip through some of these games. There's no point in trying to unearth gems on spots that we just don't need to do. The Minnesota Timberwolves 7-point favorites against the Detroit Pistons, 228 total here. Only news we're looking at for Minnesota is Juancho Hernangomez is questionable. Aside from that, you've got Towns as one of many high-priced options today. Anthony Edwards is seeing his price point steadily increase. D'Angelo Russell's playing starter minutes now. Outside of last game, he played like 30, but that was a monster blowout. The game before that, 26, but he had been seeing 33, 37 minutes. So I'm assuming in a close one, you could get him up to similar minutes once again. Do you like anybody from Minnesota against the Skeleton Crew Pistons team tonight?
Yeah, and Westbrook is 12-4 tomorrow, so that's good.
12-4? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Finally, with like what, 5 days in the season left?
Yeah, I think they have like 2 or 3 games left. But yeah, I think that there is stuff to like from Minnesota here. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, looks good. It's just a matter of being able to get him into your lineups over, some of these other pay up options. So I think more of a tournament play than a cash play, but we do know he has a very high ceiling. And if this game's competitive, you're probably getting 35, 36 minutes. But where I'm really interested is D'Angelo Russell, who, you mentioned getting more playing time now. Minnesota had said, I'm pretty sure right before he moved back into the starting lineup, that they anticipated him playing around 30 minutes a game for the remainder of the season. Then he moved into the starting lineup, immediately played 37 minutes in regulation, because once again, we have an NBA team that just has no control over how many minutes they play their players. And then he followed it up with 26 minutes and then I think like 33 minutes. So, 30 minutes and 3 quarters of a blowout. He would have easily gotten over 30 minutes had his most recent game been competitive. So I'm expecting another, at least 33 or 34 minutes from Russell. He's averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute with Towns and Edwards this year. Detroit, certainly not an imposing matchup. So there's not necessarily a lot of mid-range guys that I really want to go to on this slate, given the value that we have in the pay-up options. But if you are going to the mid-range, it needs to be someone that's capable of going out there and giving you 50 plus. And Russell certainly can, in a good matchup, and he's someone that's going to go out there and shoot a lot. So I do really like D'Angelo Russell here.
Okay. If Hernangomez is out, I know it's not huge news given the context of this slate. Is there anything that would become moderately viable at a discounted price?
Yeah, so last game, we saw Vanderbilt get the start. He played 22 minutes in 3 quarters, didn't play in the 4th, may or may not have had the game been competitive. But that's someone that, you can look to his value, I think, if Hernangomez sits. Vanderbilt coming in at 4,600 on DraftKings, so not the best price point. Like, when you compare him to the Memphis guys, assuming Valanciunas is out, he doesn't look that great. But he would benefit, I think, if Hernangomez sits.
All right, now Detroit. You want to talk about a mess? Our own producer, Jordan Klein, will throw this up on the screen. No Mason Plumlee, no Jeremy Grant, no Corey Joseph, no Wayne Ellington, Hamidou Diallo also out. That's kind of par for the course, right? But the Josh Jackson and Frank Jackson news being questionable is pretty significant because, Adam, if you look at someone in Saben Lee, I know that he hasn't exactly done what we've expected him to do in many spots lately. He did get 32 minutes last game, which was encouraging. But what do we do with someone like Saben Lee, Killian Hayes, if both Jacksons or even one of those Jacksons is out? How does it affect the wings and the point guard position tonight?
Yeah, I mean, this team has the potential to have 8 players tonight. If both Jacksons play, I believe they have 10. And then, if they both sit, they have 8. If one plays, they have 9. So you mentioned Saben Lee's minutes last game, and we haven't seen Detroit really look to play him alongside Killian Hayes all that much. But last game, they didn't really have a choice once Frank Jackson left the game. And Lee started the second half alongside Hayes, ended up playing 32 minutes. If both Frank and Josh Jackson are out today, I expect you get 30-plus minutes from Saben Lee again. And he's been close to a fantasy point per minute guy when he's gotten minutes this year. Now, maybe the assist percentage comes down playing more minutes alongside Killian Hayes, but at $3,400 on DraftKings, it's not going to matter that much if he's in the starting lineup and they only have 8 or 9 guys. If both Frank Jackson and Josh Jackson are available, I think the most likely outcome is that Saben Lee just goes back to being the backup behind Killian Hayes and plays like 18 minutes or so, which would make him a lot riskier. But if one or both of those guys are out, I think you see him get at least some minutes alongside Killian Hayes, which would make him look like a very good value.
I think so too. Again, you have to put it in context. What other value is out there? But do you think Saben Lee's price point or ownership would balloon if that's the case? Or do you think he'd stay somewhat suppressed just given what we've got in Toronto and a few other spots?
I don't think you would see it balloon to, 70% or something like that, because there's just so many other guys to use. I do think that he would be a popular play, and I think he should be. You know, he's like I said, he's close to a fantasy point per minute guy at 3,400. If he plays 24 minutes, he's probably going to be fine. It's a good matchup too against Minnesota. If he plays 30 plus minutes, there's a pretty decent chance he like 10x's. So he should get a lot of ownership.
Timberwolves played a top 5 pace, have the 28th ranked defensive rating. So yeah, it's definitely a good matchup.
Yeah, definitely a team that you're looking to take guys against.
Exactly. Now, the rest of Detroit gets a little bit weird because so many of them are already priced for Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, Corey Joseph, all of these guys being out. I think Killian Hayes would be a good example of that. Saddiq Bey is another one who's at 6,600, right? Because if all of these guys are active and had been playing, Saddiq Bey is like $4,500. So Isaiah Stewart being another example of that mid-4, high 4K guy who's sitting at a mid-6K price point. Is anybody here at a good enough salary to where we say, you know what, there's still meat left on the bone here with all of these guys out?
If they're both out, I think so, because then you look to Saddiq Bey, you look to Sekou Doumbouya. Bey played 40.9 minutes last game. Doumbouya played 27.5 despite being benched at halftime with Tyler Cook joining the lineup. If they only have 8 bodies, you know, these guys are going to get minutes, especially Saddiq Bey, who, you know, yeah, he's priced up. It's still not a very appealing price tag. He's only averaged 0.87 DraftKings points per minute this year without Grant, Rose, Plumlee, or Griffin on the floor. But if he's going to play 38 or 40 minutes, he's certainly in play in a good matchup at a 6K price tag on FanDuel, 6,600 on DraftKings. You know, you'll probably need him to shoot a little bit better than average, but still, you know, certainly in play. Sekou Doumbouya is a bit less expensive. And then even Killian Hayes. I mean, he played 38 minutes in that last game. If they're missing both of those guys, if they're missing both Jacksons here, again, you know, we're expecting Saben Lee then to play alongside Hayes, which opens up more minutes too. Like if both Frank Jackson and Josh Jackson play, you're probably getting like 30 to 32 minutes from Hayes with 16 to 18 going to Saben Lee. If both of those guys sit, you're probably just getting Killian Hayes playing like 36 to 38 minutes. You're getting Lee playing whatever minutes he's not on the floor plus a bunch alongside him. So it would make him look a little bit better. And Hayes, for as bad as he's been in his rookie year, he has produced when the Pistons have been without all of their main scorers. He's around 0.92 DraftKings points per minute. So, you know, he is priced up a bit, but I still think there's some value there. And then we know that Isaiah Stewart has a really high ceiling. He'll have his hands full on the defensive end with Karl Anthony Towns. Foul trouble, certainly a risk, and he's priced up. But, you know, we do know that he's capable of going out and putting up 45, 50 fantasy points.
Let's move it on to Miami and Boston. The Celtics without Jaylen Brown for the remainder of the season. That's a huge blow. Without Robert Williams as well. Miami's without Oladipo, but as Josh and I mentioned on the strategy show today, check it out every day of the week, 10 a.m. Eastern time, giving you your first look at the slate, along with the First Look podcast, which comes out the night before. He's not really, it doesn't really mean anything because he's played like how many games? A handful of games with Miami. So it means nothing. I didn't even put it on the lower for today. Jimmy Butler is getting a little bit of attention. Aside from that, Miami is yet another team that is just going vastly overlooked today. And I don't really see anything wrong with that. We just have so many games and so many good spots, particularly high-priced players to pick from.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't really think they should be getting much love here because even so like Jimmy Butler at his price point right now, he's 9,200 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. He's at a price point where I think he's pretty much priced where he should be, maybe even a little bit overpriced for his median projection, but we know he still gives you a high ceiling. The problem you're going to run into on this slate, if you're trying to get Butler into lineups as more than just like a nominal play, you know, across 150, is when you start comparing him to the other small forward options, he doesn't even really grade out that favorably there because you have Kevin Durant, who's a little bit more expensive and just, you know, is going to look better than Jimmy Butler. But then you also have Kawhi Leonard, who is at one of the lowest prices we've ever seen on him, or at least, you know, recently at 8,300 on DraftKings, 8,400 on FanDuel. So, you know, and giving you similar production to Butler and similar playing time. So it's kind of just really difficult to get the Butler because if you are looking to spend up at small forward, you have those, I think, superior options sort of sandwiching him. So it's tough to get there. Bam Adebayo, you know, center's not the deepest position today, but there are several pay up options that are strong. There's some value as well on DraftKings where Xavier Tillman and Brandon Clark are both center eligible. So I don't really see him being a priority. And then, you know, with Butler active, with Hero, Nunn, Dragic all playing, it seems really tough to get to those guys too.
Boston does have some absences, and on a lot of other slates, I think we'd be kind of champing at the bit to look at some of these guys without Jaylen Brown, one of their top scorers in the rotation. Evan Fournier, however, has been one of the guys that you've talked about a decent amount, saying, you know, I really would like to avoid him, but I'm going to have some Fournier just given his price point, his overall per minute production, what we've seen in the past. Now he's played 34, 36, 35 minutes, 29 over his last 4 games. One of those was a blowout. Matter of fact, 2 of them were, and he still played 36 minutes in one of them. The issue that I kind of expressed today with Josh is his peripherals have been fine. He doesn't get to the line at all, but you're definitely going to need efficient scoring from him. His usage has been okay. How much does he benefit from the absence of Jaylen Brown tonight? And is it enough to say, you know what, I'm actually all right with Evan Fournier against the Miami team that is pretty awful for DFS purposes, given that they have a really bad offense and a really bad defense?
Yeah, I mean, I am all right with him just because I still think the price point's pretty cheap. And as you were saying, he's been playing huge minutes in competitive games. The thing that actually I kind of like, or that I like about Fournier too, and normally it's the opposite. But I think that the fact that he has shot 67% over the last 4 games is actually encouraging, because we're talking about someone who not that long ago said that he was still struggling with blurred vision and headaches. But again, he has taken at least 10 field goal attempts. He's shot 67% over the last 4 games. I'm not saying I think he keeps shooting 67%, but I do think it's likely that he's, seeing clearly now at least, which is always nice. So not a priority for me, but I do think the price tag still leaves some meat on the bone, to use your phrase, with Evan Fournier here, given how many minutes he's playing. I think Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker are both in play just because they benefit from Jaylen Brown being out. We know that Jason Tatum this year has averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Walker and without Brown. He's averaged between 37 and 38 minutes per game. And this game's reasonably likely to be close so that you get his maximum minutes. The problem you run into with Tatum, I think he's a good play, but the problem you're going to run into is he's priced very similarly to Domantas Sabonis, who's a little bit more expensive, Julius Randle, who's a little bit less expensive. And then you also have a lot of value at the power forward position. So I think he's a good play, but I don't think he should be, getting he shouldn't be in a lot more lineups than those other guys who are also very good plays.
Okay. Where are we going outside of that? Do we look to anybody in the front court with Robert Williams out? Can we target a, near 10K Jason Tatum, like Kemba Walker being another one of these mid-range guys that could be discussed? It's just kind of a weird team today. This slate is so odd because there's so many players that are out that are big names or guys that would make a huge or have a pretty significant ripple effect throughout the slate that they're just not today.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on Tatum, and Kem was kind of the same thing to me. Like, he played 40 minutes last game, which is great to see. You'd seen his playing time in general elevated recently, getting 35, 36 minutes in competitive games. He benefits from Brown being out. It's just when you look at the point guard position and you keep in mind what this slate looks like, how much value there is, the fact that we have one team playing with 8 or 9 players, we have another team playing with anywhere from 8 to 10. We don't know what Oklahoma City's going to have. Like, there's so much value on this slate that it's not even a matter of does Kemba Walker do well for his salary. It's does Kemba Walker put up a huge raw point score. And so that's why, I think it's still gonna be difficult to prioritize him, even though he benefits from Brown being out. And you can make the same argument with Tristan Thompson on a lot of slates with Robert Williams out and Tristan Thompson at, $4,900, he'd be a pretty good value. I think that if you're just looking at Tristan Thompson and his salary, he is, he's a good point per dollar value. The problem is it's a really, really thin line that you have to walk for Thompson to actually be a guy that helps you on this slate, because it's not like he's a high usage guy. Like, you're kind of, if you roster him, you're hoping he gives you, like a 13 point, 12 rebound, double or something, gets like 35 to 40 DraftKings points. That's good for his salary, but it's probably not that good when you start comparing that to other plays on the slate. There's probably going to be better than 7x point per dollar guys amongst the value. And there's certainly going to be guys that score more than 35 or 40 actual points. So it still just becomes really, really difficult to prioritize him.
All right. Can you prioritize anything else from Boston, or should we talk about the Clippers in Toronto? Because this is about to get messy.
Yeah, I think we can go to that one.
All right. Let's go to this one then. Clippers opened to 12-point favorites. They're 13.5-point favorites now, 218 total. I'm just waiting for both shoes to drop. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George out. But as of now, everyone's good to go outside of, Serge Ibaka, who hasn't played in a very long time. Let's just get this out of the way first. Then we can break down the Raptors, because the Clippers, right, they're 2 touchdown favorites, Adam. And it's still like, no matter how good of a spot this is against such a bad Toronto team, they've been the Clippers have been a tough team to target recently. The production you're getting out of Kawhi Leonard lately is kind of baffling, particularly his complete drop in usage in a handful of recent games. And they're just not an attractive team right now.
He shot 26 times last game.
Yeah, that's what I said. A handful of his last.
Yeah, no, I know. He had 9 before that and 6 before that.
And then 12 and 11. So over his last 5 games, he was
The 11
averaging
was a month ago.
what?
The 11 was a month ago. It was before.
So take the game since he's been back. He's averaging like 8 field goal attempts a game, and then he attempted 26. Shot 9 for 26.
Yeah. So I do like Kawhi here. I think the price accounts for everything you just said. But the thing, my big takeaway outside of the fact that he shot 26 times last game is that he played 36 minutes. That's the most minutes we had seen since he came back from his injury. He may not play 36 tonight. If it's a blowout, he won't. But I think it tells us that we can treat him like the normal Kawhi Leonard, that we were seeing earlier in the season. He's averaged about 34 minutes per game with Paul George this year. He's averaged about 1.3 plus Draftkings points per minute. I think that at 8,400 on Fanduel, 8,300 on DraftKings, that's a really good salary for Kawhi Leonard. So I am interested there. And, again, it might not be a competitive game, but as you and I have talked about so many times, if this game gets out of hand, it's most likely because one or both of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard are scoring at a more efficient rate than normal against a bad Toronto team. So I do like Kawhi here. Outside of that, I don't really have a whole lot that I see on the Toronto or on the Clippers side. But I do think it's worth noting that Kawhi is priced at, I didn't go back and look, but I want to say probably the cheapest price point we've had this year.
8,300 on DraftKings is very cheap. There's no doubt about it. What would you be happy with from out of Kawhi Leonard today at that price point?
I mean, I think you need 50 plus from pretty much every non-value guy in your lineup.
I think I mentioned this to you the other day, and I was saying that's kind of why it was tough to get some of these like mid 8K, 9K guys where they can consistently give you, mid 40s to mid 50s, but they just don't very often, if at all, give you that 60 plus 70 game. Because at this stage of the game, there's so many cheap options out there where you don't, like, if you wanted to play 2 10K plus guys on a slate like this, you could. So I think you have to have some discretion when looking at these. And I don't disagree that Kawhi's price tag it's got to be the cheapest or around the cheapest it's been all year. But those mid 8, 9K guys have been kind of tough to get to because there's so much value that you say, well, okay, I'll pay an extra 800 and get to a guy that has a significantly higher ceiling.
Yeah, the last time Kawhi Leonard was $8,300 was December 13th. So the second game of the season. I'm pretty sure he was limited because he only played 18 minutes. So yeah, that was the last time he was this cheap. And to what you're saying though, yeah, I agree completely. And it's kind of what I was saying with Kemba when we talked about the Celtics. It's just because there's so many cheap guys you can go to, there's a very good chance that like on a lot of slates, especially earlier in the season, you'd have these builds where it's like, okay, Kawhi looks really good, and then I'll pair him with this like $4,500 guy that's an upgrade from the $3,500 guy, as opposed to paying $10K for someone. But on a slate like this, you have so many of those $3K to $3,500 guys that are reasonable. There's a good chance that at least one or two of them do as well as whatever $4,500 guy you're upgrading to by saving that money and going to Kawhi. So you really need these upper mid-range guys like Kawhi, not necessarily to outscore, the more expensive options like Tatum or Sabonis or whatever, but at least be in the ballpark.
Yep. How many 60 fantasy point games do you think Kawhi Leonard has this year?
Zero.
One. He has one at 62, but he has
17. I see a bunch of like 59 and a half, 59.75.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to round up, you got a couple, but he has 17 above 50. So, it's doable for sure. I'm just talking about from a ceiling standpoint, you're hoping to get that 55 to 58 from Kawhi.
Yeah. And to be clear, like I agree with you there for sure. Like I haven't run, I haven't crunched lineups yet, but my expectation is that Kawhi is not showing up in like your top lineups. You're probably just completely punting a spot and then you're getting an extra 10K guy in there.
I think Josh Engleman just thoroughly enjoys the back and forth with chat. He says, I'm starting to wonder if some of you listen to these shows on mute.
Frank Jackson, unlikely to play. Josh Jackson, likely to play.
Yep. So how does that, we talked about Saban Lee. We talked about Killian Hayes. Let's assume Frank Jackson's out and Josh Jackson's in. What does it do for Josh Jackson and also the rest of the backcourt?
It's kind of the most annoying like scenario that we had to break down because we don't really know what it's going to look like. We don't know if Josh Jackson is going to be limited. We don't know if Josh Jackson is going to start, but I think that Frank Jackson being out at least makes it so you're going to get some minutes of Killian Hayes alongside Saban Lee, which benefits both of those guys. Josh Jackson is 5,900 on DraftKings. I I think I have trouble prioritizing him there because I'm not confident that he gets 30 plus minutes. And even if he does, kind of like we were just talking about, you can kind of just find, 30 something fantasy points for a lot less. So I think the biggest thing is that knowing Frank Jackson's out makes it, I think, likely that you get Saban Lee playing alongside Killian Hayes for at least some overlap. And so it makes both of those guys look a little bit better.
Okay. Where are we? Oh, we're at Toronto. Wonderful. You got the Toronto Raptors. No Siakam, no Van Vliet, no Lowry, no OG Anunoby. Chris Boucher coming into this one, questionable. My assumption is he'd be limited anyway. He hasn't played since the 21st of April. So Aaron Baines is also out too. I know that seems irrelevant, Adam, because he hasn't played in a very long time, but just given the fact that that's another warm body that won't be available to come in the event that Nick Nurse needs someone if Chris Boucher also sits. So if Boucher is out, that gives us 8, right?
Yep.
So Baines could have actually gotten into the rotation. He won't today. And
yeah,
now
so we have 8 or 9 guys depending on Boucher.
Yep, 8 or 9 guys. Let's assume Boucher's in and tackle this, and then we'll take it on the other side and hit on the front court with Boucher potentially being out.
Yeah, so I mean, if Boucher's in, I agree with you. I doubt you're getting like 30 plus minutes. I think he probably just backs up Kem Birch, plays some alongside him, probably gets 22 to 24 minutes. He's expensive enough where I'm not really looking at him there, but it would at least make it so, it would take some minutes away from some of these Toronto guys. But if he's out, then you're of course really shorthanded. You have probably Birch and Gillespie playing the center minutes. So yeah, I misspoke. Boucher probably plays alongside Birch. I assume you would still get 48 minutes from Birch and Gillespie. But then at power forward, I'm guessing you get Stanley Johnson starting. I think the starting lineup ends up being Flynn, Watanabe, Johnson, Trent, and Birch. Not in that order, but I think those are the 5 players. So I think you would probably get like 30 plus minutes from Stanley Johnson. I think you get 30 plus from Watanabe. I think Bembry plays in the mid 20s. I think Gary Trent plays like 36 plus. I think Malachi Flynn plays like 34 plus. So, if Boucher is out, it just sort of solidifies the playing time for those guys.
Okay. Let me just quickly run through a couple super chats. Kevin, I'm not very, hold on, moderate. I don't even understand that one. Maybe I'm too dumb to get it, but I know Kevin S is not asking a serious question. So it's besides the point. JC says on Fanduel, Ben Simmons, Sabonis, and Embiid, Adam, Ben Simmons and Sabonis and Embiid, or Curry, Sabonis. And so, okay. So basically Ben Simmons and Embiid, or Curry and Holmes.
I think Curry and Holmes, the tiebreaker being for me that,
one pair is both on the same team.
Yeah, and they're playing a weak Indiana team. So like on the one hand, it's a very good spot for Philly, but we already have concerns about how hard Doc Rivers is going to run Embiid if he does play. I think those are kind of amplified if you're hoping to get like 45 or 50 fantasy points from Ben Simmons and then still need Embiid on the floor.
I'll say one thing.
He did have Sabonis though, so I guess that does make sense.
What I was going to say is if the Pacers keep this close, Sabonis is going to have a huge hand in it. And the guy's gone 74 plus in like 4 of his last 5. So yeah. If that's the case, then your one chance really of getting Embiid and Simmons to a decent allotment of minutes in big games is probably Sabonis having a huge game.
Yeah. And the fact that Sabonis is in that lineup, I think makes the Simmons and Embiid side fine. I don't have a strong preference either way. The way I'm just kind of looking at it is, I like Holmes. I don't love him. I like Simmons. I don't love him. I love Steph and I really like Embiid. So it's kind of just like, I like Steph a little bit more than I like Embiid, and that's just the tiebreaker for me, but I like both sets.
Oh, good call. So he just spelled Adam Scherer backwards. That's what this was.
Oh, good luck saying that.
Yeah, that's not easy at all. I did not have any luck saying that backwards. All right, so you talked about the starting rotation, what you expected to be. I should probably point out, too, that ownership, as we mentioned earlier, is pretty wild. I think it's come down a decent amount now. Like, it's not as absurd as it was, but Jalen Harris, Malachi Flynn, both of them are going to be popular. Watanabe, Stanley Johnson, who could legitimately give you 0.3 fantasy points per minute as the only guy on the floor, and Gary Trent Jr., all of them pulling double digits right now. But is there a real preference for you today? And how many of these guys are you willing to run in the same lineup?
In tournaments, I'm cool with 3. I don't think I'd go more than that, just given the nature of the slate. Cash games, I never cap it. But I do think that there's a few priorities here, sort of in different senses. Malachi Flynn and Gary Trent Jr., I think both stand out in terms of guys that I actually expect to produce at a high rate. Gary Trent Jr.'s usage rate has really jumped without Van Vliet, Lowry, or Siakam on the floor. He doesn't do much in terms of rebounding or assists, but he's going to take on a bigger role as a scorer, or you would expect him to. As long as his shot's falling at a normal rate, he should easily pay off his salary, especially at $4,900 on FanDuel. And then Malachi Flynn in 6 starts without Lowry and Van Vliet this year, 1.07 DraftKings points per minute. He, again, I expect that he plays, 32 to 34 minutes at least here. And so both of those guys look good. Then when you look to the value options, it just kind of comes down to like, there's a lot of volatility as far as who gets the most minutes, sort of based on how they're playing, but also on exactly how they produce. But we do know that Yuta Watanabe is averaged about 0.85 DraftKings points per minute this year. I expect 30 plus minutes from him. So he stands out as, I think, the top value guy as far as the really cheap guys go. Stanley Johnson, I think, plays the second most minutes out of the cheap guys. He's averaged 0.75 DraftKings points per minute without Siakam, Van Vliet, or Lowry. So he's a reasonable option. Jalen Harris is the cheapest out of the group. He played 29 minutes last game, including the last 17 and a half. Don't know exactly how much he plays today. I suspect that it depends on how he's playing as well. But at 3,100, it's pretty hard for him to hurt you. And then you have Bembry, who has sort of been in and out of Nick Nurse's doghouse all season, it seemed like. My guess is that he plays mid-20s in minutes and is a reasonable value. So I think all of those guys are reasonable. I think that Watanabe is the top guy, followed by Stanley Johnson and Jalen Harris, followed by Bembry.
I was going to ask you, is there a possibility that Bembry just comes out and plays 35 minutes today?
Oh, absolutely.
I think they're real, like a real it's live for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him we've seen Nick Nurse play him a ton of minutes. Like he was starting games over Malachi Flynn at one point. And then it got to where like he was almost DNPing even when everybody was out. So we've sort of seen it all over the place. In the last game that they played, he played, I think, like 20 or 22 minutes. I'm trying to pull it up now. But it wasn't, he wasn't like DNPing, but he didn't play a ton. Played 19 and a half minutes against Memphis last game. There's certainly a chance he plays more. But my expectation is that you're getting like 22 to 24 with the potential certainly for more.
If Boucher is out, I know you said he'd play alongside Kem Birch, but is there any interest in Kem Birch, or is the center position just too deep today?
I think Birch is okay. Like you're probably getting 32 to 34 minutes. It's just really tough, I think, especially on DraftKings, because you have Tillman and Clark that you can roster at center. On FanDuel, it's kind of weird because both of those guys are power forwards, so you don't really have those value centers outside of like Tristan Thompson. But on DraftKings, it's like, you have Embiid, you have Towns, you have Jokic, you have Vooch, you have all these guys you can pay up for, and then you also have 2 of the best point per dollar punts on the slate. And also the thing that's weird is, while center is top heavy and pretty deep, power forward is actually a pretty loaded position today too. So it actually makes sense on DraftKings to use your center spot, I think, on Tillman or Clark, and pay down there. So I think it'll just be really tough from a roster construction standpoint to put much stock into Kem Birch. Okay.
Let's talk about Philly and Indiana then. The Philadelphia 76ers head into Indiana as 5.5 point favorites, 234.5 point total. Pacers, as we've discussed a lot, one of the fastest paced teams in the league. I think over the last month, they're playing at the fastest pace in the league. Without Miles Turner, they're 3 or 4 possessions worse. I think 4 possessions worse per 100 possessions. Sorry, 4 points worse per 100 possessions defensively. Not good. This is a spot where if Joel Embiid plays, Josh and I talked about it a lot this morning. If he plays, and I think I mentioned to you too the other day that he had that post-game conference where he said, I'm playing. Like if I could play, I'm playing. I want to be in the peak condition going into the playoffs. So I think if Joel Embiid has the opportunity to play, there's no doubt he's playing. Of course, I worry about his minutes. We've talked about that extensively. But the Pacers allow more points in the paint than any other team in the league. This could be, and I think Josh said more shots at the rim than any other team in the league. Now they don't have Miles Turner. This is a dream matchup for Joel Embiid. It really just is a matter of how many minutes can he get, because he has no ownership at all today.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how I broke it down in the deep dive today, too. It's a really good matchup for Embiid. Indiana struggles defensively. They're missing Miles Turner in the front court. They've played at the fastest pace over the last month. Embiid's averaged 1.65 DraftKings points per minute this year. Everything sets up really, really well. His salary's come down. He's down to 10-1 on DraftKings, 9,700 on Fanduel. The only real concern, if, assuming he plays, is how many minutes does he play? Because you go back and you look at that last game against Detroit, he played 13 minutes in the first half. He finished with 22.9 minutes, lost some minutes to garbage time, but even if he had finished that game, he was playing 27 minutes. So on this slate, as good as Embiid is, as good as the matchup is, it's very unlikely if he plays 27 minutes, he's, the top scorer or one of the top scorers on the slate, given how many other very, very good options there are. But it's not like we've had Doc Rivers come out and say Embiid's playing 26 minutes a game the rest of the year. That very easily could have just been they were playing the Pistons and they just wanted to play him 26 minutes for whatever reason. He was questionable for that game too coming in, which, he is today, but today it's with an illness, not whatever his injury was last time. So, there's at least still the possibility that he goes out there today and he plays 33 or 34 minutes at very low ownership, in which case he's a phenomenal play because he should destroy this front court. He should have a very, very good game, and he's reasonably priced. So I think Embiid, as long as the ownership is low, the combination of low ownership and salary, I think, is alleviating a lot of those concerns. And, right now, 5.5% ownership on DraftKings, almost 12% chance of being the optimal, according to Alex's Sims. So I think that as long as the ownership stays down, he's a worthwhile look in tournaments. If he gets up to where, somehow he's getting similar ownership to Jokic or something, just play Jokic. But as it looks right now, I think he's a very good tournament play.
Can we get to anyone else here, from Ben Simmons to Tobias to Seth Curry, who's shooting wildly efficiently, I should say, but the volume is concerning when you consider if he doesn't shoot well, he's giving you nothing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tough with the rest of Philly, just because of, it's sort of been the theme of the show, is that mid-range guys are going to be pretty difficult to prioritize. You might end up with, one or two sort of rounding out your lineup, in which case Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, even Curry are fine given the matchup. But more often than not, when you start your lineups out, at least, like if you think about, if you are hand building, or if you think about sort of how your lineups get put together, you're not starting with 7K guys on the slate and working from there. You're sort of putting in the 10K guys, you're putting in the cheap guys, and then maybe you end up with room for a Ben Simmons or a Tobias Harris. I think if you get to them, either one is fine. The matchup is very good. If Embiid sits, they both benefit and they both would stand out even more. But, it's just difficult, I think, to prioritize them, just like it's difficult to prioritize most mid-range guys tonight.
Okay. The Pacers have had just phenomenal performances from Domantas Sabonis recently, and Brogdon has already been ruled out. Edmund Sumner's out. Jeremy Lamb has been ruled out, but the big one is Malcolm Brogdon. Domantas Sabonis' price has actually come down a little bit. He's still expensive. How do you prioritize somebody like him compared to all of the other top tier options today? Because he's getting low double digits on DraftKings, which I think is a reasonable. I think it's reasonable, especially going up against Joel Embiid, a good interior defense from Philly with blowout risk as well, around 14.5% on FanDuel. Can we get to him? And if you do, is this one of those nights? Is this one of these weeks going into the final few days of the season where you like to get in potential blowouts several players or even one player from each side, or at least the guy that's going to keep it close if it does stay close? So like a Sabonis in an Embiid lineup, is that something you could see yourself getting to more often, or even a Sabonis in a Ben Simmons or a Tobias Harris lineup?
I kind of view it going one direction. Like if I have Embiid or I have Simmons or I have Harris,
you don't need the Pacers. I'm talking about the team that could get blown out.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm inclined to have Sabonis because, like you said earlier, if this game, if the Sixers players do well and this game's competitive, it's got to be Harris, LeVert, or Sabonis. Like there's nothing else that the Pacers really have that's keeping it close. So I like it that way. If I have Sabonis, I'm not forcing Embiid or Simmons or Harris or whoever into a lineup because Philadelphia's production can just be spread out enough to where those guys don't end up being top plays and Sabonis does. So yeah, I think it goes one way for me. But I do agree that Sabonis becomes a better play as you get Sixers into your lineup.
Thoughts on the rest of the Pacers?
And to just, I guess, elaborate a little bit more on Sabonis, I think regardless of the Sixers, he is one of the best plays tonight because not only is he one of the best per minute producers, he's averaged 1.68 DraftKings points per minute in his 7 games without Brogdon and Turner and with LeVert this year, but he's also averaged 38 minutes per game. And if this game's competitive, you should expect that again. The Pacers right now are the 10 seed in the East. They're a half game behind the Wizards. So, they still have something to play for. I assume that you're getting as a ton of minutes from Sabonis if this game's close. So the only real negative here is that he's facing the Sixers. But when you look at guys around him, Julius Randle's facing the Lakers. Jason Tatum is facing Miami. So it's not like any of those guys have really good matchups. They all, can be expected to play similar minutes, but Sabonis in this situation has been the best producer. So I think he's ahead of those guys. Karis LeVert is a good option as well. He's got about a 30% usage rate, 26% assist percentage without Brogdon and with Sabonis this year. Tougher to get to, I think, because, he's 9K, but I do think that he's still a good play, just not as good as Sabonis.
All right. That it for the Pacers?
Yeah.
Well, we ran out of time to do the Hall of Fame segment on the strategy show, but I want to take even just a minute to do it here because we had some huge winners yesterday. If you're wondering what it is the Awesemo avatar on all of our viewers, our subscribers, our listeners, winning contest, finishing top 3 in a field of 5,000 more, getting their free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $100 value. All you do, download the Awesemo profile picture at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame. Be sure to mention me in those as well. Makes it easier to see them. And win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Or if you just have a win you're proud of, even if it's not that, and you got the Awesemo avatar, or you just like the show, hit us up. We'd love to put you on here and do the bragging for you. We love seeing these Awesemo avatars at the top of everything. First off, we had, did you go through Phil already, Jordan? Because we had Phil. I thought that was the first one on here. Am I wrong? No, I thought it was the first one on here. Phil took down the fantasy basketball world championship qualifier. I think it was Phil P. Hanley, 214, $50,000, 264. And then you had CZAP, $20,000 as well, coming in second place. Said he just keeps climbing up. Took down 20K yesterday. There it is. Let's go. It came in third. You're going all over the place, bro. All right, go ahead. There you go. And then here you go. First and second, another one coming in third, 750. There's just a lot of them, but I wanted to showcase a couple of these big ones today because it was fantastic to see all of that. It makes me happy as well. Another one, Josh Castro said, pretty nice night across the board. Split second in the $1.20 max for NBA, $625 second place. Good stuff to everybody here. Download the avatar. Go to awesemo.com/avatar. You got to do it that way, right? To do it, because you can't just do it after the fact and send us a screenshot. It doesn't work like that. And finish top 3. Go ahead and get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It can be in the piggy bank. It can be in the nickel or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a large field contest where you're paying 20, 50, or however much to enter. So congrats to all of you guys. Love to see it. And we'll do this again tomorrow. Dallas and Memphis. Dallas Mavericks here. We'll be without Kristaps Porzingis. They'll be without Maxi Kleber's questionable. 2-point favorites against the Grizzlies. 227.5 total. A lot to talk about the Grizzlies. How much is there really to talk about when it comes to Dallas, though?
It's pretty much Luka.
Okay, like that's it.
Yeah. You asked what there is to talk about with Dallas. Yeah, it's Luka.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, yeah, he's great if you can pay up for him. I don't think he really stands out compared to a lot of the other options, but you should get 35, 36 minutes, assuming he doesn't either get ejected for technical fouls or for punching someone in the dick like he did last time. But yeah, you're getting 1.5 to 1.6 fantasy points per minute, 36 or so minutes per game. So while his production hasn't increased without Porzingis this year, he's lost like 0.08 of a fantasy point per minute. The usage rate does go up. The rebounding percentage goes up a little bit. So I think his efficiency comes down, but the ceiling, like the raw ceiling for Luka, is a little bit higher without Porzingis, just because you're getting more opportunities. Right now, he's projected for 22% ownership with a 22% chance of being in the optimal on DraftKings. So right about where he should be. And he's going to be a little bit easier to get to, I think, too, because he has small forward eligibility. So you can roster him in 5 out of 8 spots in your lineup. So I like Luka here. I still think he's behind Curry in terms of who I'd prioritize, especially because Curry's $800 less on DraftKings. But even on FanDuel, I think I put Curry ahead of Luka at the same price point, but certainly one of the top plays tonight.
All right. Well, Jaren Jackson's out. Jonas Valanciunas is not expected to play. Enter Brandon Clark and Xavier Tillman. These are 2 spots that we did not have earlier in the day. Also, one of the biggest reasons why Toronto ownership, I assume, has come down throughout the day as well, Adam. Brandon Clark and Xavier Tillman are going to be 2 of, if not the 2 highest owned players on the slate today going up against the Mavs.
Yeah, and I think they should be. I mean, you've seen both of these guys produce at a high rate when they've played without Valanciunas. For the season, Brandon Clark's averaged 1 DraftKings point per minute when Valanciunas isn't on the floor. He's averaged 26 minutes per game in the games that he's played without Valanciunas. Xavier Tillman, I'm assuming, will start in Valanciunas' place. He's averaged 1.07 DraftKings points per minute and 26.8 minutes per game in his starts this year without Valanciunas and without Jackson, and the games where Clark has been active. So he's still getting those 26 to 27 minutes. Tillman, $3,600 power forward on FanDuel, $3,600 on DraftKings. Clark, a $4,500 power forward on FanDuel, a little bit more expensive, but still looks good. $3,400 on DraftKings, kind of just a no-brainer. So, both of these guys are nice because not only do we expect them to see increased minutes with Valanciunas and Jackson out, but they actually produce, fantasy point plus per minute. So it's not like they're guys where you're kind of hoping they play a lot better than normal. As long as they do what they normally do, they're going to end up being two of the best values on the slate.
Anything else you want to talk about here with somebody like, Grayson Allen out, no real big news outside of the front court.
Yeah, there's not much else. You get potentially increased usage for Dylan Brooks or for John Morant. Potentially you get more minutes for DeAnthony Melton with Jackson, Valanciunas, and Grayson Allen out, but we've seen that Memphis doesn't really like playing him unless they absolutely have to. So he'd still be a pretty risky option. The one other guy from Memphis I mentioned in the deep dive was Kyle Anderson, who does see his rebounding percentage and his usage rate increase when he's played without Valanciunas. He's someone that has actually been over a fantasy point per minute guy for the season. And, like I said, the rebounding numbers and the usage go up without Valanciunas. Still a price point that I don't think is really going to end up being a priority on this slate, but I do think Anderson's a little bit underpriced for Joe Val and Jackson to be out.
Okay. 6 up. We got 5 to go. Is there anything else here when we clear the board with Dallas, Memphis, or do you want to jump into Brooklyn, Chicago?
We can go to Brooklyn, Chicago.
All right, let's do it. Nets 5-point favorites, 233.5 total. I guess we can start and finish with 2 players here. Joe Harris on FanDuel might deserve a second or two, but Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, they're separated by $300 on DraftKings, which I think is fair. Kevin Durant still underpriced if you look at the minutes he's been playing recently. And also, I'm not necessarily sure how much it matters, but right now they are 1 game ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks in the East for second place. You have to look at some of the playing time here. Durant's played 36, 40, 40, 36 and 41 minutes over his last 5 games. That's a far cry from where we were a couple weeks ago when he was coming off the bench. Irving's played 37, 39, 39, and 39 over his last 4.
Yeah, and in one of those games that Durant played 36, he was in foul trouble and lost a few minutes. So
I would have played 40, you're saying.
Yeah, so the playing time's been huge. One thing, I mentioned it Saturday morning on the show with Aton, and then I went back and looked a little bit more. I said that I wasn't sure if Kyrie was taking fourth quarter usage away from Durant. He's not. Durant, just up to that point, had like a 15% shooting percentage in the fourth quarter. So that's a potential concern that I had with Durant that has been alleviated as I looked into it more. He's averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute without Harden and with Irving this year. You can expect 38 to 40 minutes again tonight. So he looks really good. Again, it just kind of comes down to there's a lot of guys that look really, really good on this slate. I think he's up in that conversation though, with I guess not quite with Sabonis, but with Curry and close enough to Sabonis, especially when you consider the price discount on DraftKings. Where, he is, I think, one of the better options on the slate, just given the upside that you get. Kyrie Irving, I think, will be a little bit more difficult to get to. He's around 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. But like you said, still playing huge minutes, certainly capable of taking over a game. But similarly priced to Durant, I'm just always going to go with Durant.
Do you like anybody else here for Brooklyn? It's usually a 2-horse race.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. What about the Chicago side? It's so weird because Vooch has played excellent lately. If this were a smaller slate, you and I might actually be having a conversation against this Brooklyn front court about how Vooch could be a really great, contrarian high-priced option. But there just aren't enough spots on the roster on a DraftKings or a FanDuel roster. For us to be able to get to some of these guys that are actually in really good spots that have been playing really well. Vooch is definitely going to fall into that category as a casualty of the slate, as you would say.
Yeah, I didn't mention him in the deep dive today. He kind of just went under the radar, and like you said, he doesn't really stand out on the slate. But the more I think about it, I do like him in tournaments. He's projected for 1%. Yeah, he's projected for 1% ownership on DraftKings. He played 36 minutes again last game. So, there's been some blips on the radar, but you're definitely seeing his playing time trend up overall recently. The big concern when he came to Chicago was they were playing him like 31, 32 minutes, even in competitive games. Now he's been getting 36 minutes, which is really good to see. He's played 13 games with Zach LaVine active. He's averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute. So the production's been there. And then the matchup, like you said, it's really, really good. And Vooch is someone that can take advantage of, but he can take advantage of it in a variety of ways. So I think that Vooch actually does look good. Like if Embiid were to get ruled out, it would take one of those pay up options off the board. But even if Embiid's in, I think Vooch is kind of a similar play because Embiid's the better fantasy producer, but even if Embiid plays his normal minutes, there's a decent chance he plays 2 or 3 minutes less than Vooch, which would kind of make them, equal. And you're actually getting less ownership going to Vooch. So I am interested in Vooch in tournaments. On FanDuel, again, you don't have Clark at the position. You don't have Tillman at the position. So the opportunity cost isn't quite as high to pay up at center either. So I am really interested in Vooch. But, again, if I have to just choose, 50-50, like, Jokic versus Vooch, I'm just taking Jokic. But I do think Vooch getting 1% ownership, it's really, really tough to get guys that have, the ability to score 60 plus fantasy points at virtually no ownership.
I'm with you. I still think he's a casualty of the slate, and ownership bears that out. But especially if Embiid sits, he gets interesting. It's a good spot. And they're only 5-point dogs. How many free throws per game do you think he averages this season? Just without looking.
12.
2.3.
All right, I went the wrong way on that one.
You went the wrong way. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, 1.5. 1.5 in the games he's played with LaVine.
Yeah. I know he's like a finesse type offensive player, but that's crazy, man.
Yeah, he's averaged 5.6 threes per game in the ones he's played with LaVine.
Amazing. It's so funny looking at how basketball has evolved, where Brook Lopez only several years ago attempted, I think, 1 3 in a season. Remember?
Yeah, now it's all that he does.
Yeah, Vooch didn't attempt. Yeah, all Brook Lopez does is shoot threes now. Vooch never shot threes either. A lot of these guys never did. And, it's evolved so quickly. All right. Anything else for Chicago?
I think that's about it. I mean, it's really, really tough to get to LaVine on the slate, I think. And that's pretty much all that I see outside of Vooch.
All right. Let's go to Orlando and Milwaukee. Before we do, we got free content on the site today. Hit that thumbs up. We free content all the time on YouTube. I think it's pretty good. If you enjoy it and you appreciate it, the quickest, easiest, and freest way to help support us is to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, right? Subscribe to the channel. If you hate it, we'll refund your misery completely free. You never have to hear from us again, but give it a shot. NBA ownership projections are free today. You want to follow along. MLB top pitcher is one of the best tools we have on the site. PGA golfer rankings and the NHL main slate top stacks. We rotate through premium content each day, put it in front of the paywall so you can get a look, and then hopefully come join the community, come join the Slack chat, and check out everything else we have to offer, including the Fantasy Cruncher add-on and all the tools built by the #1 ranked DFS player in the world. All right here. A lot of them free today if you want to check them out. Orlando. All right. I didn't even write any of these guys because Ross is probably done for the year. So is Ennis. So is Carter Williams. I don't see Porter coming back. Like, okay, all of these guys pretty much done throughout the remainder of the season. So we're left with exactly what we've had for the past week plus.
Yeah, and it kind of ends up being a mess now that their salaries have come up a little bit. They still have 10 guys, or, they played 10 guys last game. Wendell Carter Jr. is questionable, so potentially they'd have more, another body out there. So I don't think there's anything that really stands out here. Like in terms of point per dollar, Brazdeikis is okay. The problem is that he sucks and doesn't really score fantasy points that consistently. And there's no shortage of guys in that price range that actually do score fantasy points. So it's nothing more than, just a pivot in large field tournaments. It's not something I really want to rely on here. You've had the pricing on most of these other guys come up. Mo Wagner's up to 4,200, Mo Bamba up to 7,400 on DraftKings, I think 8,100 on FanDuel. He still has a ceiling if Carter Williams or if Carter Jr. is out, but certainly a lot more risk now than we had, a couple of games ago when Bamba was 5,500 or whatever it was. Cole Anthony's salaries come up. RJ Hampton's salaries come up. There's just not much that stands out here. When you have so many plays on this slate that look really good, there's not a lot from Orlando, I don't think.
God, Josh, too much zinc today or something. He's feisty in chat. What about Milwaukee, though? I have legitimate concerns about Giannis throughout the remainder of the season. Call me crazy, but I just know how Budenholzer is, and it certainly feels right now that they can win these games with 5 other players playing with one hand, and Giannis doesn't need to play a lot of minutes. If you think he's going to play a lot of minutes today, Adam, then you have to really like him. I just have concerns.
No, and I agree with you. I think he's very similar to Embiid in that we really don't know, but there's certainly reason to be concerned. You know, Milwaukee doesn't have their seeding locked up. They're competing with the Nets for the 2 seed or the 3 seed, but they certainly can beat this Orlando team with Giannis playing 30 minutes. You would think. They did just get, destroyed last night, but they should be able to handle this team. We haven't gotten more than like 30 minutes from Giannis in any of his last 3 games, but 2 of those games were blowouts. One of them he fouled out in about 30 minutes. So I don't think you can draw the conclusion that he's capped at 30 minutes or anything, but I do think that at the very least, it's likely Budenholzer sort of keeps his thumb on his minutes. And, if there's any way that he can not play 35 minutes, that he'll avoid it. The thing that I think makes it the most difficult to get to Giannis, though, is that he's more expensive than everyone. But even if, let's say he plays his normal minutes. Let's say he plays 34 minutes and he averages his normal like 1.7 DraftKings points per minute. On this slate, considering the circumstances that people are playing under, that's about the same per minute production that Sabonis produces on average. It's about the same that Curry produces on average. It's about the same that Jokic produces on average. Curry's going to play more than 34 minutes if we assume all these games are close. Sabonis is going to play way more than 34 minutes. Jokic is going to play 34 or 35 minutes. So there's these guys where that the team isn't holding them back. They're less expensive and they produce at the same rate. So it just makes it really, really tough. Knowing that Giannis right now is still projected to get like 14 or 15% ownership, it makes it really, really tough, I think, to take the risk on him. When if I want to take a chance on somebody, I can go to, Embiid, who produces similarly and has the same concerns at much lower ownership, for example.
All right. God, Josh, get out of chat, man. You're making things wild in here. Do you like anything else from Milwaukee?
No, I mean, we have Middleton priced up. You have Drew Holiday still priced up. I don't really see anything here outside of Giannis. And to be clear, I'm not saying Giannis is a bad play. I think it's a very good matchup. Orlando's been one of the worst rebounding teams since they traded Vooch. They are one of the least efficient defenses, 28th in defensive rating over the last month. I'm just saying that compared to all of these other guys, it's, I think, really, really tough to feel good about going to Giannis over some guys that we know are going to play 38 minutes in a competitive game.
Okay. 3 games to go. I think we did okay today. Not too bad. We got 8 minutes. Phoenix and Golden State. Kick it off with this one first. These are the 3 10 p.m. games that we're going to be hitting on tonight. Then we'll turn it over to the Live Before Lock crew. Josh Engleman in a good mood, joined by Eric Lindquist. That should be a good show. Don't go anywhere. News will almost certainly be breaking over that.
How many eyebrows
hour.
will Eric have?
What's that?
How many eyebrows will Eric have?
That's a good question. 1.5. Phoenix -4.5, 231.5 total. It's a good spot, pace up matchup, but how many of these guys are priced nice enough to get to? And is Chris Paul in play for you at 7,800?
Yeah, I think several Phoenix guys are in play, sort of as like a last.
Chris Boucher will start tonight.
Yeah, so that's interesting. We'll have to keep an eye out, most likely during the Live Before Lock show. But if we get any word on a minutes limit, if he's not limited, Boucher's a good play. But it's not like his price really came down. As far as Phoenix goes, I think there's several guys that you can use sort of as the last piece in. This is a nice pace-up spot for Phoenix. This is a game that's likely to be competitive. Golden State's been very, very good without Weissman or Oubre. So I think, while you and I have talked a lot this year about Phoenix being efficiently priced because they haven't dealt with a lot of injuries, I think that one spot you can still look to them is when they're playing a team that's actually good and unlikely to get blown out, because you can get a couple more minutes from guys like Paul and Booker. They're still not priorities though, but they are guys, they certainly fall into that category of, if you're going to mid-range guys, it needs to be guys that can get you 50, 60 fantasy points. You can get that from Booker. You can get it from Chris Paul. It's not going to happen often, but they can certainly get there. Not a bad matchup for Ayton, Bridges, Jay Crowder, but those guys, I think, sort of just get pushed down because of the slate. Like, I don't think it's a slate where, even though Mikal Bridges, for example, is a reasonable point per dollar play at 5,700 because he should play 36 minutes, if I get 30 to 35 fantasy points from Mikal Bridges, I don't anticipate that really being super helpful on this slate. Same kind of goes for Jay Crowder. Like, if he scores 30 at 4,100, great, but that's still 30 points, and you need a lot of points most likely to win the slate. So I'm not sure that I really want to be plugging guys in unless they're like 3K, thinking, I hope he gets 30 points. So, I think Phoenix has several guys that are reasonable options. Booker and Paul, of course, being the most, the ones I like the most, just because they clearly have the highest ceiling.
All right. How much do we like Steph Curry today on the other side of this game? Just a guy that, on one hand, he's going to finish as the leading scorer in the league. Every night he's doing something remarkable, but he relies on those, 40-point games to propel him to where he's got to go. The odd thing is his price has come down $800 on DraftKings over the last 2 games.
I have no idea why his price is dropping, but
I don't get it. It should be up, right?
Yeah. I love Steph here. The salaries come down, but even if it hadn't, I'd like him because this is another guy where, Golden State's been involved in plenty of blowouts recently, but when they're not, you're getting 36, 37 minutes from Curry. And he's just been unbelievably good without Oubre and Weissman this year. He's played 11 games with both guys out. He's averaged 1.74 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 40.9% usage rate, 8.6% rebounding percentage, 29.1% assist percentage. So he's getting 5.5 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game. So it's not like he's, giving you Jordan Clarkson levels of peripherals. He's still getting enough. And then he has a 41% usage rate for like the most efficient shooter ever. So there's nothing not to like here for Curry. Phoenix has been a solid defensive team this year, but they've struggled recently. They're 24th in defensive rating over the last month. So they haven't even been playing that well in that regard. Absolutely love Steph. Nothing negative to say whatsoever.
Do you have anything positive to say about the rest of Golden State?
Not really. I mean, we know Draymond gives you a nice ceiling, but he kind of just seems unnecessary on the slate. Wiggins, as you get more value, I wrote up Wiggins because I expect him to play 37 or 38 minutes, but as more values opened up, he kind of just becomes unnecessary. I certainly have nothing good to say about Ket Bazemore. Juan Toscano-Anderson doesn't really seem necessary on the slate. So I think it's pretty much just Steph or bust from Golden State. Okay. 2 games to go. It's a good time to tell you about No House Advantage. If you haven't checked it out yet, there's 2 things you need to know. 3. 3. Yeah. 3. 1, it is a peer-to-peer player prop format. Very cool. Put them in a tournament style. You build a lineup around prop bets. Unlike other sites where you have to bet singles, you can throw them all into a tournament style guaranteed prize pool. Very cool. If you haven't checked it out yet, download the app. Number 2, if you use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, you get $20 on your first deposit when you sign up and download the app. But 3, most importantly, we built tools specifically for No House Advantage at Awesemo.com that are entirely free. That includes the No House Advantage player prop tool, where you're taking our projections, putting them up against the player props over there, and the optimal lineups tool. I should say one more. 4, they don't change throughout the day. The props do not change throughout the day. So they're static. You're going to be able to get great spots there if you're paying attention, if you know what you're doing. Unlike other sites, other books, where if a lot of money or a lot of bets come in on one side, the line moves. Not at No House Advantage. There's so many ways to make money and build your bankroll there, including the free tools, including getting the deposit bonus. So download the app, check it out, and let us know how you do. No House Advantage, the sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right, man, we'll run through these quickly. New York and the LA Lakers. I'll toss this over to you because I don't think there's a lot to talk about here. The only news is LeBron James was out. Then Woj said he was going to play. Now he's out again. Should be back by tomorrow. Yeah, I don't think there's a ton here. I mean, him being out certainly makes Anthony Davis' ceiling higher. You did get 41 minutes from Anthony Davis against the Suns last game. He went for, I think, 77 DraftKings points. Obviously, Anthony Davis has an extremely high ceiling, but it's not a particularly appealing game. 2 slow teams, 2 good defensive teams. I would have more interest in Davis if there weren't just so many other good plays to look at on this slate. But, he's fine in tournaments, no issues. Beyond that, I think it's really tough to get to anything. We've looked to Caruso for value recently. We've looked to Horton Tucker and to KCP for some value, but I don't really think you need to go there on the slate. There's just value that I think looks a lot better.
Okay. On both sides of this game, right?
From the Knicks, I would point out Julius Randle. But again, it's sort of, he gets tossed into the mix amongst those power forward options. He's only $9K on Fanduel and $9,400 on DraftKings, which is pretty cheap for someone that averages 38 minutes per game and 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. But again, it's sort of just, if I get some Julius Randle, that's great, but I'm not like actively seeking out Julius Randle.
We got to like 1,400 likes on the Deeper Dive yesterday, solely because Eric Lindquist said he was shaving his eyebrows. We can at least get to 400 in the final minute of this show. That is not too much to ask. OKC and Sacramento wrapping it up here. Then we'll turn it over to the Live Before Lock crew. OKC 10.5 point dogs, 224.5 point total. Teo Maladon is out. Lou Dort, Ty Jerome questionable. De'Aaron Fox still out in COVID protocol. Harrison Barnes doubtful. Wrap up both sides of this one. I'm assuming you'll spend a little bit more time on Sacramento, but they are getting pricey.
Yeah, they're getting really expensive. I do still think that they're worth a look here. If there were less news in other games, they would, I think, be some of the better plays on the slate. As is, there's still guys that I'm happy to get to, but they don't look quite as good. DeLon Wright up to 8,300 on DraftKings, 8,100 on Fanduel. Still no issues with that. I mean, he's averaging 1.25 fantasy points per minute without Fox and Halliburton. He leads the team in potential assists per game. He's fourth in rebound chances per game in the games since Halliburton's been hurt. But there's 4 guys within like one rebound chance per game, and Wright is one of them. So you're getting the rebounding numbers, you're getting the assists, you're getting enough scoring from him, and he's averaging like 37 minutes per game. Rashawn Holmes, Buddy Hield, Bagley, Terrence Davis, Mo Harkless, these guys all look fine. You're getting increased playing time from Davis, from Harkless. Bagley's only played 19 and 21 minutes the last 2 games, but it is a nice bounce back spot where he can potentially play well against OKC. Buddy Hield's peripherals are up without Halliburton and Fox. So I think all these guys look good. It's just a matter of, being able to fit them into your lineup. From the OKC side, still waiting on some news there. Lou Dort's questionable. Ty Jerome is questionable. Theo Maledon is out. If Ty Jerome plays, he's a decent value at 5K. The problem is just that OKC still has so many bodies because they're just bringing random dudes in to play minutes now that I'm still not anticipating really anyone playing over 30 minutes. And so on a slate where you have 3K guys that can play 30 minutes, paying 5K for guys to play 28 doesn't really end up being that appealing, even though they are playing the Kings. So, certainly a ceiling for guys like Roby or Jerome or Moses Brown. Svi Mikhailuk would look better if Ty Jerome is out. If Jerome and Dort are out, Svi Mikhailuk ends up looking pretty good, but I'm not holding out for I'm not saving roster spots for OKC value when there's so much other stuff on this slate.
In some places, they say a suggestion is a subtle command. Well, I suggest you stick around for the Live Before Lock show because, news is going to start coming in. You're going to want to be here building lineups while these guys break it down. Josh Engleman, Eric Lindquist, you got a good team coming up next. Thanks as always for hanging out, guys. Good luck tonight. Adam and I will be back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. And while you're at it during the break, give us a follow at ShipMyMoney DFS, at Laffy_D, and at Awesemo_com. Peace. Later, boys.
See you guys.
Ooh, I just assumed they were.
It's too bad for them.
So my mic's live right now? I'm here for all you dummies. Let's do this. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Tuesday, May 11th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Eric Lindquist. We are brought to you by No House Advantage. And boy, have I been stirring the pot over the past hour, but I'm not going to lie. It's been pretty fun. Please hit that like button because Laffy left this at under 500 likes and he's not very good at getting them. I, on the other hand, feel like I should get a ton of them given the interaction that I have given this chat over the past hour. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and then we'll start the same way I always start. Eric, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, everybody wants to see the brow. You can go back and see it during the tip-off. I had the side one going. I've now got bang, bang, man of my word. Look, I mean, this is like ridiculous. I've done some ridiculous things with my days. This is up there, but otherwise, I might be a chalk donkey, but I think there might be some era donkeys in the chat, which is kind of an interesting thing. Do you have anything you want to let out before we get started?
Oh no, I could go for the entire hour just ripping these people apart. We can't do that. We got too much DFS to talk about.
That's fair.
This is a monstrous 11-game slate. We have so much to talk about. We just got a bunch of news right now, and I want to hit on all of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 active players for the Raptors. Aaron Gordon is available to play. Monty Morris available to play. Devontae Graham available to play. Clippers starting lineup: Beverly, George, Leonard, Morris, Zubac. Ooh, all that's pretty good. I have those guys in right now. So luckily I don't have to make a single change.
Yeah. Not only that, but like all the news, I was expecting like something gigantic because I do expect some gigantic things to roll in over the next 54 minutes. Haven't had like the Giannis is out news. We haven't had the Embiid is out news. We haven't had any of these things that I was kind of bracing myself for. But yeah, Devontae Graham in, like you don't have to play anybody on Charlotte. I think that's just kind of a wash. I think outside of Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. over on Fanduel, really didn't have any interest in anybody else on Denver. Would have been nice to have some of those guys out, but what are you kind of doing to react?
I mean, everything that just came out is already how I had it set up, so yep. I feel pretty good about all of that. Let's kick it off. Let's look through some of the guard spots. And honestly, I think most of this is pretty cut and dry, but I am curious to get your thought process. On DK, Malachi Flynn, Saben Lee, Steph Curry, Gary Trent, Luka Doncic, even DeLon Wright, all, double-digit ownership, somewhere in that 20% range. Any of those names that are picking up a bunch of ownership seem over-owned to you, under-owned to you? What are you looking at guard today?
Well, I thought Malachi Flynn was going to come in around like 35, 40, and I was kind of looking at shorting at that point in time. I think there's some minutes uncertainty that exists with Toronto. This can go a lot of ways. It could get very horizontal very quickly. I feel pretty good about Malachi Flynn right around 21% over on DK. Going back over to FanDuel, I know that that's kind of where you play a lot over at. And right now I'm coming right in around the field at 25%. I don't want to really necessarily, I'm not super hinged one way or the other to Malachi Flynn. I don't want him to burn my night. But I think there's just so much upside that exists for some of these Raptors for minutes, and it could be all over the map. I don't even know necessarily how to go about predicting it. I'm definitely lighter on Gary Trent over on FanDuel. I know that to be true because that is a huge number. And I feel as though he's not somebody that I'm going to be prioritizing because I think he's kind of somebody who could get those minutes clipped by some of these other pieces that they might be giving glorified auditions to. Saben Lee, somebody that we saw a massive minutes boost, but I have with Josh Jackson in, that's kind of a body. I guess it's kind of a 1-for-1. You take out Josh Jackson, you add Josh Jackson, you take out Frank Jackson. Saben Lee, I think that's probably about the right minutes projection, but he's 3,400. I'm more apt to go overweight to him than I am to go overweight to a 5,300 Malachi Flynn over on DraftKings. That's kind of the route that I'm taking. And then Killian Hayes, who's getting a ton of ownership right now at 5,400. I don't really see a reason to be going there on this slate. I know that he had a big upside at 39.75, but having, if I'm going to be going with Malachi Flynn and Saben Lee in some spots, I don't know if I want to have like two pieces in that 5K range. How about yourself?
So I have Malachi Flynn at the top of my board on DraftKings at the guard spot, 5,300. I assume he is the guy whose minutes can't really go anywhere at this point. I am nervous about all things Raptors. That's for sure. When you get these games where there are limited roster spots, it all starts to get a little squirrely because they can go a couple different directions. But I think Flynn is just going to be that guy. I do like Saben Lee quite a bit on DraftKings as well. He would be my number 2 if you're looking to get any value. He makes it a lot easier to pay up across the board. Now that Frank Jackson has got, I think those minutes are pretty stable. We saw Saben Lee play 32 minutes this last time out. Now, obviously, Frank Jackson was sort of in for that game. Josh Jackson wasn't in, but I think it's a lot easier to give more minutes to Saben Lee without Frank Jackson. I think Josh Jackson sort of exists in a little bit of a different realm. The fact that they were willing to play Killian Hayes and Saben Lee alongside of each other was really interesting to me. I don't think that I would want to do that, but I guess when you only have like 8 or 9 bodies, you don't have much of a choice. Gary Trent on FanDuel, though, that to me, that is a no-brainer. He's the $4,900 price tag is just crazy. $6K on DraftKings is different. I still like him on DraftKings, but at $4,900, my assumption is that he's taking every single shot. He has a monster usage rate when the Lowry, Van Vliet, Siakam, Anunoby guys are off the floor. Gary Trent's heaving, and I don't think that that's too crazy. You just need him to do that because he's not going to do another thing on the floor.
Exactly. And I don't know. It feels like this could be like a sneaky Bembry spot where he gets a bunch of run. Jalen Harris played 29 minutes. I don't know. Gary Trent's a piece that, he's locked in past this year, correct? He'd be kind of like the one guy out of their core group of guys that's actually playing today, other than getting the late news that Boucher's in. I don't really know. For whatever reason, I know we've got him in around 34 minutes. I do have a little bit of a sneaking suspicion that this might be a little bit of an audition spot for some of these other guys. Bembry, would it really shock you if he got up to around 25, 26 minutes today? Not for me. Stanley Johnson has played some big minutes of late, hasn't done jack squat in them, but played up to like the low 30s minutes here a couple times of late. There's nobody there. And I know Gary Trent kind of is the main beneficiary, and, under 5K sitting at 4,900 on FanDuel. I get that. Like on DraftKings, I think you can make him kind of a contrarian play over there for sure. But coming in at 30% on FanDuel, I don't know. I have enough worries about those minutes. And I know he's going to project out well, but I think I might be trying to go elsewhere with the position.
Okay. Could be an advertisement for Gary Trent as well. Restricted free agent this year. And maybe they let him take the keys and see what he can do. Maybe he could run a second unit offense. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? What are you looking to pay up for? We've got Curry at 10K on DK. We've got Luka at 10.8. Guys like Kyrie, 9,600. How are you looking to pay up at guard? Or are you?
Oh, at guard. Okay, so we're staying guard. I was about to just jump to my favorite play of the slate, but at the guard position, I mean, you got to have some exposure to Luka. He's got by far the highest ceiling of the entire slate at that position, along with Steph. Like those are the two guys. Steph at 10K on DraftKings. You're talking about a guy who's just got absolutely insane, crazy usage. He's averaging right around 1.7. He's like putting up Giannis numbers with Kelly Oubre off the floor this season. In the course of the last month, right around 1.7 DraftKings points per minute. I mean, it is stupid. I believe it was a show that you said earlier that there's nobody who really benefits from the 3-point bonus on DraftKings quite like Steph Curry, who's attempting, 20 of them a game. So the most efficient shooter on planet Earth at 10K kind of feels like a discount in this spot.
I have very little problem getting to Steph. He is third overall for me on DraftKings because of that bonus. I have him a little bit lower on FanDuel. So I have Curry and Luka flip-flopped on each site. I prefer getting to Luka on FanDuel in comparison to Curry, where they're the exact same price. I prefer getting to Curry over Luka on DK. But we're on DK, like Luka's my 5th ranked guard. I don't want it to seem like there's this chasm between the two. They are both very clearly my 2 favorite pay-up options. I don't have much else there. I got to ask you about my boy on this one, though. Thoughts on $6,700 Ben Simmons today on FanDuel?
Did you know on Friday I was doing live before lock and I accidentally lock buttoned him on the early? He was the only early player that I had from that from the Pelican Sixers game. I didn't have any of the Pelicans value, and I ended up profitable on the slate, which was just kind of insane. He put up 8, 9, and 10. It was just pretty outrageous. Could have gone really nicely had he like backdoor to triple double, but 67 on 6,700 FanDuel. That's a low number. It's Indiana playing way up in pace. I'm at the field right now on them too. I have 26%. I think that's about right. I have a feeling that you are well higher than that today.
I have him as my 4th ranked guard on FanDuel behind Trent, Malachi Flynn, and Ja Morant. And the Ja Morant situation is basically a coin flip between the two. The fact that Joe Val is out, Jaren Jackson is out, Grayson Allen out, but we knew that one. Morant sees a pretty sizable usage bump in that scenario, so he has climbed a little bit for me. Do you see anybody that's not picking up a lot of ownership at the guard spot that you're a little surprised? Who are your contrarian options that you've got your eye on?
Oh, well, I'm the chalk donkey. I only play chalk. I don't have anybody. I had some Jordan Poole interest underneath 4K. So he played 3,900. It's on a back-to-back going up against Phoenix. He only played 19 minutes last night in a close Utah game. He did see upwards of 26 and 34 against OKC. They've been playing a really, really tight rotation. He went out and kind of flamed through a little bit, put up 20 actual points. I think if you put some counting stats around it, he's been playing pretty darn well. Underneath 4K, he's coming in right at 2.4% over on FanDuel right now. I have a little bit more than that. And I think that that's somebody that, I mean, I have not heard his name once anywhere. I think that if you were to get up to high 20s minutes, I think that there is a shooting upside for him there. Him and Curry are really going to be the two guys chucking there. So I've not heard his name one time today, and I have a little bit more than, well, quite a bit more than the field.
My top 11 guards on FanDuel are already owned in double digits. It takes me a while to get to anybody that I would say I am interested in as a contrarian option today. Ben Simmons on DK at 7,300, I guess would be the first guy I see in single digits, but I'm not advocating for a lot. That's just the first guy that shows up in an ordered list. If I really, maybe like $3,800 Talen Horton-Tucker on FanDuel at 3% ownership, that could be something I throw a little bit of love to. But I think that the ownership at the guard spot is going in the proper direction. And it's really hard to find anything slipping through the cracks. Maybe like Karis LeVert is not owned today. He's obviously very highly priced. If Indiana stays in this game, I think that LeVert could be a little bit of it. So paying up to be contrarian is something that I think that you can do. It's not that he's going to have a great median projection. That's why he's not picking up any ownership. But I do like the idea of going to someone like that if the game can stay close, because it's not happening if it's not coming from LeVert and or Sabonis.
I think that that's great logic on that. And we're targeting ceilings. Like you're going to need everybody to just absolutely smash on this slate. There's so many ways to go, so many ways to build. So whoever you're spending up for needs to have a ceiling. Well, Karis LeVert definitely has a higher ceiling than what is being represented right now. I have no problem with that. I'm actually going to take your advice on that one. I like that a lot.
Smart move. Everybody should.
Yeah. Well, not everybody does. We can see that today.
Yes, we certainly can. A couple lineups came out as we were talking. Wolves will start Rubio, Russell, Edwards, Vanderbilt, and Towns. The Hornets will start Ball, Rozier, McDaniels, Washington, and Biyombo. So
yeah,
those
nothing interests me whatsoever. I mean, taking shots on Russell and Towns' ceiling, I think that is pretty obvious and straightforward there. Edwards, I'm not enamored with here, but I feel good just kind of like staying away from that Charlotte side for sure.
You and me both. All right, schedule for the rest of the night is this. There are no more shows. This is it. Slate, everything ends when we get off of here. But watch the Slate Starter Pod or listen to the Slate Starter Pod and Process Show. They will be the next two pieces of content that hit the YouTube channel. You should check them both out and check it out on the podcast feeds. You can subscribe to individual sports or the whole shebang where you get everything anywhere you get your podcasts. It's not too bad. Free premium content. I know Jordan had it up on the screen a little bit earlier. NBA ownership is free today. MLB top pitchers tool. Amazing tool. That is free if you're playing baseball. Although good luck playing both sports at the same time. That stuff's hard. PGA rankings are free. Ben and I will have our betting video out. If it's not out already, it should be out early tomorrow morning. And then NHL top stacks free as well. Giving out the goods today, as per usual. One piece of content in each sport every day except for Sundays. Got to give everybody a little taste. That's what keeps them coming back, I think.
It's definitely not me and my charm and wit, apparently. Have a good one, Nate Rojas. I'm so sorry to see you go. Nah, wave. Take it easy, bruh.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the forwards on this slate now. This has changed pretty dramatically as the day has gone on. On DraftKings, to me, my top forward today would be Kevin Durant at 9,900. Xavier Tillman on FanDuel at the power forward spot at 3,600. Now that we have no Joe Val, to me is the unquestioned top guy, and he is picking up that ownership. Now, you were about to say something before that I completely agree with. So I'm going to let you take the floor because you got into it. Tell me a bit about Anthony Davis, which is, I think, where you were going.
Why are we not jamming Anthony Davis today at 2% on FanDuel? Like,
he's 0.8% on DraftKings.
Has anybody watched, I don't know, any of the last 2 games where he's been playing close to 40 minutes? What? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like you in YouTube chat today right now with Anthony Davis. I mean, I did not just dress up as him today. Well, I mean, I lost a bet to Greg Ehrenberg, and therefore I had the unibrow going on the tip-off show. It was all kinds of problematic. Don't go back and watch it because I want you to have respect for me going forward. But Anthony Davis at 2% is maybe one of the more egregious things I've seen. How are we not even just box score watching and seeing 40 minutes and, I don't know, 78 fantasy points? Does that interest anybody on this slate?
It interests me a lot. I have him as the 3rd ranked forward overall on DraftKings, number 2 on FanDuel, and my clear favorite pay-up option at forward on both sites. It's as if people aren't looking at the stats for what Anthony Davis does when LeBron James and Dennis Schroeder aren't on the floor. And just to explain a little bit, it's massive, folks. Massive. 37% usage, something in that neighborhood off the top of my head. I'm pulling it back up right now just to make sure.
39 and 40 something, I believe. 39.5 and 35.6. There we go. So it's close. Outrageous.
I've got him in for 36% usage for today at 36 minutes. I think that he could potentially play more minutes. I have no problem getting to a healthy amount of Anthony Davis today. But even still, let's just say that he's 5% owned across both sites. Let's just say it's a little bit higher than it should be. I would have absolutely no problem 4xing that number. And if you wanted to be more than that, I don't think it's crazy. He can break this slate. He can go for 70 fantasy points. He can go for 80 fantasy points. Hell, it wouldn't be crazy. He's done it before. He can be a guy you need and a guy that changes the slate for you.
He's the best play flat out on this slate. And I don't think it's close. Like, at his ownership, but when you factor in the game that we played between ownership and where he's at, you're not going to ever get Anthony Davis in this kind of a spot again. I know it's 11 games. I know that he's expensive. I know we have a bunch of studs we want to pay up for, but seeing where Giannis is, and I am a big Giannis truther when it comes to fantasy basketball because I am well over the field just about every single slate. 1.7, you can't duplicate the rates, and in any close game, he's going to smash, but this is Anthony Davis for me, and I don't think it's remotely close today.
I don't understand how Giannis is pulling the ownership and Anthony Davis isn't. It makes no sense to me. I'm totally with you. We did have 2 super chats. One from EMAC. He said, "Thank you for sharing your journey and process to overcome your fear of Clippers." That was directed to you, Eric.
Thanks, EMAC. 2024. I'm your vice president. Just give me the nod, baby.
And then we got a super chat from Anthony Davis that just said, "I'm here. What's up?" You're here to be in everyone's lineup because I think that you are the most underrepresented play on the slate. You are the contrarian option that everybody should be getting to, and you should not be contrarian.
Utah Watanabe is 13.2% right now. Anthony Davis is 0.8%.
I think it's crazier that Giannis is 16 and AD is 2.5.
Same.
And like, I don't mean to disparage Giannis. I like him, but I mean, you need a very specific game out of Giannis today, including the minutes in a matchup where they are just going to bludgeon them.
I'm expecting news. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I feel the news coming in that regard. Also, it's been awfully quiet for the first 20 minutes of this show.
It really has.
It's like those horror movies that, it's the first 15 minutes and, we're just like checking into the hotel. We're talking about all the fun activities we're going to have. And then we jump in the pool and there's sharks. So get ready.
Jakar Sampson expected to be able to play today. And per who the hell is the coach? Nate Bjorkgren, right? Yeah, Nate Bjorkgren still has to work out pregame, but he thinks he'll be available. Joe Val officially ruled out. Grizzlies will start Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Slow-Mo, and Xavier Tillman. So nothing too crazy there.
Yeah, I just don't want to play Slow-Mo, but I think I'm going to. He's so chalky today. I've been on him the last couple of slates where he's been like around 4 or 5%, just expecting him to start doing what he was doing 2-3 months ago, where he can take over in some spots. But apparently him and Ja Morant just don't like playing basketball right now.
Daniel Tice now probable. Shouldn't make a change. I assume most sites are going to have him in, but he was questionable. So
okay,
I'm not a fan of that Kyle Anderson chalk.
Really?
I'm not
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like I think he's a bad play. I just don't know why he is becoming a guy on a day where there are infinite guys.
Him playing the 4, no J-Val doesn't really change much for him though.
No.
It is strange, but also at that price point, I don't see. I'm just like grouping by 5,600 over on DK right now. Don't want to play Jalen McDaniels, Terrence Davis, whatever. Could get there. He's been really good here of late, but no. Dorian Finney-Smith, no. I think it's kind of a product of like what's around him at that price point. Like Gary Trent 6K over on DK. So I think it makes sense going his direction as opposed to like jamming a bunch of Gary Trent in, whose his ownership has now started coming up to a level where I'm probably going to have none now over on DK. But Kyle Anderson, I think it's just like a product of what's around him. There's not much.
We got 2 more super chats to hit on. One from Darren Unger. FanDuel cash, Simmons, Davis, or Sabonis Morant. I think it's got to be Sabonis Morant, but I'm not even sure that that's the best allocation in a cash game. Anthony Davis is not a cash play today. I love that dude, but you can't play him in cash.
I don't want to tell you to rebuild your lineup, but rebuild your lineup.
Yeah. Those are, you should be going different directions.
Yeah.
And then, another one. Soul Dope. What's up, fellas? Please guide me on FanDuel. Another 3v3, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I can't help it sometimes. Okay, so Kyle Anderson, Jason Tatum, Yuta Watanabe. Okay.
Yep.
Gabriel Deck, Sabonis, and Dylan Brooks.
The first one, because as soon as you said Gabriel Deck, my brain exploded into millions of little pieces.
Final line in that super chat. OKC fan here, and Deck is in line for work.
20 minutes of work like everybody else on OKC. And here's the thing. I've been trying to take shots on OKC and I was considering like who I might be playing today. You don't need to on an 11 game slate. Like, yeah, there might be guys like under 1%. Pokashevsky would be my favorite guy from OKC in the event that but you need Dort out and you need Ty Jerome out for that to even like be plausible for me.
Yeah, I would take a shot on someone like Moses Brown, who could put up like a bunch of really weird stocks in a matchup against Sacramento and get there in a different way in limited minutes. If I'm taking shots on Oklahoma City, I'm taking shots on the guys that have better per minute rates. Deck has been good at 4,300 on FanDuel, 4K on DraftKings. Like, I don't mind getting there, but I'd rather have slow-mo Tatum and Watanabe. I feel a little bit safer with those guys.
Fact.
2 more super chats. They're coming in gangbusters here. James Kennan says, Josh, don't fail me, my man. AD and Ariza or Butler and Baisley.
I mean, it's not close, the first one, but I don't like Ariza by any means.
Just play someone else other than Ariza would be my... I mean, I have at forward of everybody that I have ranked, I have Trevor Ariza ranked 36th.
Not good. Like,
no.
This is the biggest problem I see with most people. And I get it because I think I'm probably guilty of doing this in golf DFS and PGA DFS, but you can't play everybody. You got to start figuring it out at a certain point. Like, this is an 11 gamer and we all want to try to be the person who pegs that 1 or 2% guy. But if they're not people who are 1 and 2% guys with the ceiling of an Anthony Davis, you're really kind of doing it wrong on this slate.
Yeah, you're getting too far down the rabbit hole when you're getting into the Trevor Arizas.
Like, how many times have we played Alex Caruso on the last however many slates? I have him like 40th amongst guards today against the Knicks at 4,800 on DK. Like, I really have no desire to be going that direction whatsoever. And he's been like a big part of my lineups for the last week. That's just kind of what happens on an 11 gamer.
Sunflower with the super chat. This is a DK GPP question. Steph Curry and Kawhi or Ben Simmons and Jokic?
I mean, this is like probably the best 2v2 we've had in terms of I'm probably going the Steph Curry route. So if the Clippers, I mean, they could just absolutely annihilate him here. I expect Kawhi to start asserting himself as they get closer to the postseason. You're getting a huge discount for what we expect Kawhi to be going forward. Starting to take more shot attempts, 26 field goal attempts against the Knicks in that home loss here on Sunday. I think we're going to start seeing those numbers trend up. I like seeing the 37.8% usage as opposed to 24 and 17. We saw the 2 games previous. He was just kind of like getting himself back into shape. It looks like from the 2 weeks that he had off. I like going Steph's ceiling along with Kawhi. If that game stays somewhat intact against Toronto, you're obviously going to have a lot of Toronto pieces in lineups. So why not pair them together?
Ben P, most important fantasy cruncher groups tonight, if any. Memphis is the question. DK, GPP. Max 2 or 3, Embiid, Harris, Simmons, maybe. I'm not a big group setter. It generally speaking doesn't matter all that much to me. So like I probably wouldn't have anything set outside of like direct backup type stuff on an 11 gamer. I think it'll all come out in the wash.
Also, Tillman and Clark are cheap enough, specifically, well, on DK especially, they're both cheap enough where they're going to share the court at some points, not a ton together, but enough. And I could see them both getting there at their salaries. So don't go crazy trying to figure that out. I mean, for me, it's a lot of like, who's the direct backup and center? Like if it were like a Gobert favors situation on a certain slate where you get Gobert in foul trouble and you have favors, obviously you don't want them in the same lineup.
Right. And the chances of those showing up as in a potential lineup are pretty hard anyway. So that's why I don't do it. Like if I've got a guy that's showing up in 30% of lineups and another guy that shows up in 1%, I don't need to set the group. Like that's just it. That's just going to happen from time to time. Gene B. Kim says, happy anniversary, Josh. Happy Tuesday, Eric and Jordan. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. I'm sure you're going to win something tonight. So make sure you tag us.
Yeah. Congrats on the money already.
Yeah. Cowboy Smith X sent us some Canadian Monopoly money, no question. And now we've got another super chat from Abraham Calton. Says favorite fan. Oh my God, they're coming in like crazy. Favorite Fanduel single entry center.
So I mean, it depends how large your GPP is. So if it's a big single entry, and you want to try to get different, let's go down to Moses Brown. I really do like that call against Sacramento under 3%. Just gives you a different look, 4,900. Why not? That's probably going a little thin, but if I'm playing one center on this slate over on FanDuel today, make it Nikola Jokic against Biyombo and Zeller.
So much of it depends on what the rest of the lineup looks like. But my highest ranked center today is Joel Embiid. And it's by 1/10 of a point relative to salary against Nikola Jokic. So either one of those two guys would likely be my answer. But if I'm in a single entry and the rest of my lineup is sort of chalky, I like getting to Embiid at half the ownership.
It's party.
And it makes me nervous. Nuggets starting lineup: Campazzo, Rivers, Gordon, Porter Jr., and Jokic. Maxi Kleber will play today for the Mavs. That is something that I was not expecting. Final question was from R. Cathelza. How many minutes for Boucher? 26, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, he's remotely viable. He could go out there and just assert himself. 1.2 fantasy point per minute rate on DraftKings for the season. That's something I'm interested in with no other piece out there. I could take some shots on it.
Let's see. Let's give Maxi the 27 minutes or so that he normally plays. We'll take a bunch of time away from Josh Green. We'll take away some minutes from Boban. Still 4 left over. Still 2 left over. Yeah, I don't get the sense that Maxi's going to matter at all. It's still, to me, it's just still Luka on Dallas and nobody else.
Same.
Okay. All right. We've made our way through all of the super chats right now, so I can get back to business. That took a while, man. That took a while. We don't have a promo going on right now, but I do need to talk at least a little bit about our sponsor. That would be No House Advantage. We'll start here. Use the promo code Awesemo. When you sign up, you get a $20 first match deposit bonus today if you're a new user. And we're not worried about projection or about fantasy points any longer. We're worried about player props. That's a little bit different. Now, I'm going to say right now, I think this is a fantastic place to build your bankroll. They've got the 5K slam dunk going tonight, 2K up top, and it's only 66% full. This locks in 27 minutes. I highly recommend that you guys are getting into this contest because, one, you're probably going to see some overlay, and at the very least, you're going to see reduced rake. We have some goods for you on the website. Not only can you get every single prop available ranked in terms of likelihood of going over or under by the boss man and the tools that we have at awesemo.com. It's free. You can look at that all the time. You don't have to just make this deposit now at No House Advantage and then you're you're out of luck moving forward. We have this stuff for free. And if you want to do even less work, we have optimal lineups already prepared for you that you could enter at No House Advantage. So you're trying to rank props from your favorite to your least favorite. Your favorite's worth 10 points, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 down the line to be your least important prop. And we have all of the data that you could possibly want to use on the website for free. Go check it out. It's the best place you could be building your bankroll right now. We have the screenshot in our Hall of Fame. One of our users took first and second last week, rolling in the dough now for it. It couldn't look any better. So go check out No House Advantage. You can download the app in the App Store, go to the website itself. Win big with player props today at No House Advantage. And we're back into the Canadian Monopoly money from Zachary Williamson. Why is no one talking about Jimmy Butler? He had 57 last game versus Boston, and if Miami wins, they lock into avoiding the play-in games.
Because I don't know, there's just so many different plays on this slate. Like if you got to Jimmy Butler, sure, fine. But I'm a big fan of playing Jimmy Butler when there's no Bam, and I'm a big fan of playing Bam with Jimmy Butler. And 57 is great, but I can find 57 from, 10 different dudes on this top end. And small forward, generally, I'm trying to punt a lot of places. And I don't know, if you get him in a lineup, I have no problem with it. But 9,200 over on DK, not my favorite.
I mean, Butler is the most owned Miami Heat guy on Fanduel and on Draftkings. So like people are already there. I think he's slightly over-owned. I don't care at all what he did last game against Boston. That's totally meaningless to me. But the team's fully healthy. Like you've got Kendrick Nunn out there looking for his own shot. Goran Dragic looking for his own shot. Bam certainly didn't go anywhere. Tyler Hero is still back in the lineup. There's a lot of different ways where Butler doesn't have to be involved in a DFS landscape and still be really good for the Miami Heat. And that's what sort of scares me. They don't need him to take over. And with 11 games on this slate, there are so many other teams that have guys that have to do it all. Butler doesn't have to be that guy today, especially against this Boston team that's a little walking wounded and probably in a weird way waving the white flag.
Yeah, I think, that's all very, very valid. I'm Boston, poor Boston, but actually, no, not poor Boston. They're kind of crazy, but Jaylen Brown out. It's going to be brutal. Oh, we got the bomb. Yes, we
baby. Did. Joel Embiid is out tonight with a non-COVID illness. No Embiid, no Korkmaz, and no Matisse Thybulle. Let's talk through it now. I was about to transition to centers. We got a little bit of a different transition to go. So let's update this now. Obviously, Dwight Howard becomes a starting center for the Philadelphia 76ers. This much is not all that confusing. Last time Embiid was out, he's only been out once in the last month. That was a game without Simmons as well. Howard played 25 minutes. I think that's about right. I'm going to give him 26 minutes. I don't think that that's too crazy. I don't really need to look into it all that much more. Mike Scott is now back in the rotation. I assume Mike Scott is the backup center here, especially against Indiana, where that's not really the biggest problem in the world. So we have, 15 or so minutes remaining after that. We know that there's no Thybulle. We know that there's no Korkmaz. Maybe Isaiah Joe picks up a little bit more time. I think we probably firm up the minutes of Tobias Harris and to Ben Simmons. Does this open up anybody else to you from Philly? How do you feel about Simmons? How do you feel about Harris? How do you feel about Dwight Howard?
And don't forget Seth Curry. We got to throw him in the mix of it too. There's just so many shots available with Joel Embiid off the floor. I think for me, it really goes Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, that are the non-Dwight Howard pieces. So Dwight Howard, absolute smash. You also have Tony Bradley out of town now too. So Mike Scott playing the backup there, not nearly as relevant. I feel really good about Dwight Howard's minutes now. This is just the best play point per dollar at the center position, bar none, I believe. He just becomes a priority for me just about everywhere. But Tobias Harris now, 7,200. I already had some interest on him there over on FanDuel. He's at the power forward position where we kind of have everybody, but he's the priority at 6,900 now. Just such a ceiling that exists there. And Oh man, I'm so nervous about how much Ben Simmons I'm going to get on this next run over on FanDuel. It's going to probably hurt my brain. I'm probably going to just have to cap him because I think out of everybody, we've seen that one game against Utah, but I mean, you basically had Harris and Embiid out for that one where he finally asserted himself against Utah, and that was like 2+ months ago. So who cares? But 6,700, definitely some boards to be had there too. I mean, these guys are just going to project out really well. And then Seth Curry, just kind of the other guy I'm giving a small bump to here. You get no Korkmaz out there, no Thibault. Like he's going to benefit quite heavily too.
So I just made my updates pretty quickly. Dwight Howard is my 5th ranked center. Jokic is pretty clearly at the top. I've got a trio of Rashawn Holmes, DeAndre Ayton, and Bam Adebayo. By the way, I'm speaking from a FanDuel perspective. It's a little easier to talk about. Okay. A little easier to talk about centers on FanDuel since it's only one at the position. I have Holmes, Ayton, and Adebayo relatively close to each other, and then Dwight Howard slots in at the 5 spot. Dwight Howard on DraftKings is, what the hell is his salary? 4,200. So Dwight Howard on DraftKings at 4,200 is now my favorite center option. That price is just way too low for what I expect him to do here. It's actually a really good spot as well for him. This does improve Sabonis's chances by a little bit. It's just going to be an easier run with Dwight Howard than it was going to be for Joel Embiid manning the paint. I don't need to go too crazy here, but yeah, Dwight Howard, in my opinion now, is the best center option on DK. And I actually do prefer him slightly to Tillman, even with Tillman being $600 cheaper.
As do I. He's my highest owned player on the entire day right off the bat. Like, yeah, I just changed it all here. We'll see what the update ends up being here from Awesemo, but God, it is an absolute smash.
Yeah.
Wish that game was at 7, by the way.
For real. Yeah. I don't see much changing for Ben Simmons on FanDuel. Like he looked really good before. He still looks really good now. I do think we probably want to talk a little bit about Tobias Harris. I know you touched on him a little bit there, but he definitely does get a bump. He sees a legitimate usage increase with no Joel Embiid. So I have Tobias Harris at 7,200 on FanDuel and at 6,900 on, hold on, flip
other way around.
7,200 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel. Tobias Harris is my favorite forward on both sites.
I'm getting some Shake Milton too. So you take Joel Embiid off the floor, 28.3% usage. What in the world?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, I didn't expect him to jump up any kind of meaningfully away. 4,300. I thought Seth Curry was kind of the de facto guy, but going through these rates, I mean, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey. I mean, there's just so many shots that are going to be available. That second unit, I mean, I would assume them to stagger a little bit. And I mean, it'll be some Harris there too. But yeah, Maxey and Milton, definitely guys that are cheap enough. I think you can take shots there too.
Let me see here.
Maybe not Maxey. So
yeah, I don't think Maxey gets enough minutes.
Yeah, he's still
and he's expensive.
There. Right. So it's Shake Milton. I mean, that's the surprising one that was just popping up for me. So I wanted to address him as well because didn't even say his name. But it's pretty clear cut, I think. To like for me, just in order: Dwight Howard, Tobias Harris, huge beneficiary. But I'm kind of forcing my way to a little extra Seth Curry.
Josh Jackson will start for the Pistons. Starting lineup for said Pistons: Killian Hayes, Josh Jackson, Sadiq Bey, Sekou Doumbouya, and Isaiah Stewart. So nothing too crazy. Doesn't really change anything for me. That was what my assumption was once we knew that Frank Jackson was out.
I'm wild stuff a little in less Philly Saban Lee as well as a result of Dwight Howard existing in my life now.
That makes sense. He should tumble at least a little bit. So we were about to talk about center. And then we got hit with the A-bomb of Joel Embiid being ruled out. By the way, to whoever asked that question before about a single entry center, it's not Joel Embiid anymore. Just spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's a pretty good call, I would say. Sharp take.
Yeah, you might want to go ahead and take him back out now. That's my assumption at the very least.
Moses Brown or Dwight Howard.
Yeah, well, now on FanDuel, I have them as basically the exact same play. I have Dwight Howard by 0.4 of a point on FanDuel.
Yep. Oh my.
So what else do you want to do at center? How you feeling about Rashawn Holmes, Bam Adebayo, DeAndre Ayton? What has changed for you now? Obviously, ignoring the fact that Dwight Howard is now the best center option on the slate.
Yeah. So on DraftKings, we'll just
on DraftKings.
Yeah. So I'll address that because you've got the FanDuel stuff well covered. Nikola Jokic still going to be the guy that I'm prioritizing at that position alongside him. I'm having a hard time figuring out what I want to do with Tristan Thompson. I think you just play him at 4,600. I think because I'm not really going to get any exposure to him whatsoever, especially now over on FanDuel in my allocations over there. I think I'm going to force and make sure that I get a little bit of him there. I think there's just a big minutes upside that can exist there. No Robert Williams alongside him there. Obviously not that Jaylen Brown really affects him, so to speak, but a guy that you can definitely get to a little bit of there. Looking at the rest of the position, like Rashawn Holmes, I know that you said you really liked. I think he's fine. But as you said, Domantas Sabonis is now somebody power forward center eligible over on DraftKings. I think has another gigantic ceiling spot, and he's coming in under 10%. I mean, it's what? 4 of his last 6 games, 72 plus on DraftKings. That's a kind of ridiculous number, and having Brogdon out definitely helps with that.
Let's see. Has that line moved yet? Were you able to hop on that?
No, I didn't have time. I was busy doing this. I didn't see what it is.
I'm trying to check it out now because that's obviously going to make a difference. And I would imagine the total goes up as well. Oh, yeah. Philly now -5 is what I'm seeing. 233 total. Didn't move nearly as much as I was expecting. But
yeah, that's strange. It only dropped a point. And that's kind of in anticipation. I mean, I was thinking about betting it a little bit earlier. I think that just kind of speaks to how good Dwight Howard's been playing as well. Like, not saying that Joel Embiid is worth more than a point. Like that's a fact. So I definitely agree with you there. He's worth 3 or 4 minimum on that spot. But Dwight Howard in his backup duty has been awesome this year.
What I would say to this is, while I agree with what you're saying, I think that original number was baked into him being 50-50 for this game. So while we're seeing it drop a point, potentially a point and a half when this truly stabilizes, I think it's more likely that it's more like 3, and we already had 1.5 taken out of it from the jump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as opposed to what would have been 7.5
right now. Yeah, exactly. This Pacers team isn't very good right now.
No.
All right, we don't have any other major news coming in yet. This is going a lot better than I was expecting. When I flip-flopped this Monday, Tuesday with Spags, I was like, oh, man, I'm giving up a pretty easy Monday for hell on earth. And so far, with 14 minutes to go until lock, I don't feel too bad. This has been relatively tame.
Famous
maybe it all blows up. Yeah, maybe it all blows up post lock. Maybe it all blows up at 6:59. Both of those two things would be, I don't know, pretty commonplace at this point. Wouldn't shock me at all.
No. Nor
is there anything that we haven't touched on? Any guys that you have your eye on that you haven't been able to hit on yet?
You know, I keep trying to dig to find somebody to really kind of be like, oh, like last night there were guys like Reggie Bullock that I was considering as like low pieces. If you get Alec Burks and Emmanuel quickly out there and stuff like that, but it all feels unnecessary as you start to get some of this news on a slate that is this large. The top plays kind of rise to the top, and some of them are still under-owned compared. Like if you go to the boom bust tool, you can still find some leverage on some certain plays. Like, you know, I guess Saban Lee, I'm kind of forcing a little bit more of now compared to what I had. I guess it's dropped quite a bit. So his optimal rate is coming in right around 43%. His ownership's about the same there. I was kind of giving him he was dropping drastically once Dwight Howard kind of showed up here, and maybe he still will. But guys like Terrence Davis at 5,300, it doesn't seem normal to be playing a guy like that, but his optimal rate is close to 15%. And, you know, coming in right around 7% over on DraftKings. I think that there's guys like that are just such better plays to try to like get a little bit of lower owned tournament exposure to that. Why would I try to play Reggie Bullock at 1% when there's so many things that have to go right for him to work out? And I still don't think he's going to be a better play than Terrence Davis when it's all set.
Also a pretty tough matchup for Bullock as well. Lakers, no matter who's in or out, apparently is a top 5 defense one way or the other. Kudos to Frank Vogel for setting that one up. Ooh, what do we got? Still no news. 12 minutes to go. So I think we could take a little bit more questions. Premium Slack, get your questions in. We got one from Tedious here. Thoughts on Towns on FanDuel? There's a guy that is definitely getting slept on, but I have Towns as my number 10 center today. The fact that he's picking up as much ownership as he is a little intriguing. Not for me.
I have 10%. And Dwight Howard, I'm assuming I haven't done all my FanDuel stuff here yet. I'm playing 40 lineups over there. I don't think I'm going to get a crazy amount. Like I bet that comes down a little bit here with Dwight, because I'm probably going to be well north of 50% on Dwight here at this point in time. So Cat, yeah, he stands out as a great play, but you have Edwards and Russell now, and Russell in that starting lineup, that definitely pegs into him. And we've seen that in his last, he hasn't hit 60 plus for 2 weeks. And I think that's just kind of a direct relationship to D'Angelo Russell being on the floor a little bit more.
I'm just not confident in Karl Anthony Towns minutes today. He's played 36 minutes once in his last 6 games. He also has 31, 32, 24, 31, and 29. I just don't think that he's going to be out there playing everything you need. And on a day like today with 11 games, you need every single minute to count. You need the outlier performance on a per minute basis, and you need the outlier minutes at the same time. I don't think the margin of error is good enough. If Karl Anthony Towns were 2% owned, then I would be really interested in Karl Anthony Towns, because the ceiling would still be there. But based on our ownership, he's already being owned. That is likely. And that makes me want to just get to other guys. Maybe not Holmes, because he's already chalky. Ayton, Bam, even Dwight, depending on where that ownership comes in. Moses Brown, as we mentioned, there's nothing to stop Moses Brown from falling into 28 minutes today. Oklahoma City is fully random. You can pick those numbers out of a hat. I'd be willing to go that. And I don't know, who knows how many minutes Chris Boucher actually plays? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, they have nothing to play for. The Timberwolves should be trying to lose games. We have
the Raptors starting lineup.
Goody.
Malachi Flynn, Gary Trent, Stanley Johnson, Chris Boucher, Khem Birch.
Yeah. I think that was kind of what I expected. Chris Boucher, they said, was going to start, and I don't see any way around it. Stanley Johnson was going to be in that starting lineup. Did you expect somebody different?
Once Boucher was said to be the starter, I think all bets were sort of off. At that point, anybody could, Bembry could have been at the 3. Watanabe could have been at the 3. You could have picked anybody there. Not that I didn't think, obviously Stanley Johnson was certainly in range there too. I was no longer confident in any of those guys.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Watanabe, I kind of was just anticipating coming off the bench. I think he started alongside Siakam that one time, but yeah, otherwise it's been traditionally him backing up the 4.
All right. We got a couple more super chats coming in. Mikey B with the $2 Canadian. Toonie for your thoughts. Is that an actual saying? I wonder if it is. Svi or Davis?
Every time I see CA, I just think California, that it has to be California money, which is better than Canadian money, but we appreciate it nevertheless. Davis, I touched base on Terrence Davis right now, popping up with the highest leverage score on DraftKings in the boom bust tool. I think he's fine. 5,300. We've seen some upside. Going to go out there and chuck here. It's nice to see him going out and chucking in his time. But Svi, definitely a pass for me, unless you were to get Ty Jerome and Lou Dort out. And I'm not really going to be prioritizing that whatsoever.
Cowboy Smith. How many people are watching this stuff from Canada, man? The last 3 super chats are all in Canadian. Is the exchange rate different? Or people just doing this on purpose?
Yeah, I think it's a troll at this point, right? Unless Saskatchewan is checking in, holler, how you doing? Good to see you.
Best 7K range utility pick on DraftKings. I think it's an easy answer. I just don't know if he's already in the utility spot or not.
Yeah. So Tobias Harris, 7,200 would be the guy. But if you're looking for somebody different, just play Tobias Harris.
Yeah. That Tobias Harris was my answer. I think Ben Simmons is a viable answer at that point too. But yeah, it's Harris. I just assumed that Harris is already in that lineup. That's why I gave it a little bit of pause in my first thought process. I'm just trying to update my lineup now. I did have you to Watanabe and a placeholder, but good. 100% of my salary used. All set. Bay Area 415 definitely didn't hear the beginning of this show. Thoughts on AD and a FanDuel GPP? Love them. Love them, love them, love them, love them, love them. I don't know how else to say it. Love
favorite play on the slate.
Yeah.
Relative to ownership.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good way to put that. Speaking of ownership, have we gotten an update in the past couple minutes? 2 minutes ago. Bada bing, bada boom. Let me grab this. 6 minutes to go. Guys, get your lineups in. Or at the very least, make sure you got a dummy lineup in that doesn't have anything in the 7 o'clock range so you can fix it just in case craziness happens. Dwight Howard now projected to be the chalk play of the day on DK. Ben Simmons projected to be the highest owned player on FanDuel. What could go wrong there?
A lot can go wrong. I will hit the brakes on that one. Oh, really? All right.
I mean, to me, he is the best play on FanDuel at 6,700. The problem for me is the amount of other point guards that you can get to, whether that's Malachi Flynn, Ja, Luka, DeLon Wright, Saban Lee as value. I didn't even say the name Kyrie Irving yet. I did not say the name Steph Curry yet. There are options to be had at point guard where I don't mind being like a little bit lighter than 48% on FanDuel. If you tell me you got 30, 35 of Simmons, I think that's pretty reasonable.
That's what I think I'm going to do because there's just so many ceilings that exist at the position still. Curry, Doncic, specifically the two guys I'm talking about. Kyrie Irving, if you wanted to go there, gonna probably drop his ownership down now. We've got him right around 12. Could definitely see a massive ceiling against Chicago. No issue taking a little bit there. DeLon Wright getting completely slept on because he had one bad game and it was a blowout. It wasn't even a bad game. So I'm well over the field on him. We haven't brought him up yet. So wanted to touch base on him as well, but that's kind of it for the position now. You don't need to get weird whatsoever at this point. I'm getting way too much Jalen Harris on DraftKings.
Nerf that bad boy.
Yeah.
Soul Dope with another super chat. Buckle up because there are like 27 names in this. Are you ready?
No.
Going crazy, LOL, with this Embiid news. Is Curry still viable? I don't even know which one you mean, but I assume you mean Seth. Tillman, Harris, D. Russ, fading Flynn for Ben Simmons, ? What to do? So you wouldn't be fading
recap
Flynn.
the slate for us, please.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you wouldn't be fading Flynn for Simmons. Simmons is significantly more owned than Malachi Flynn to the tune of 2x. Harris, I assume, is Tobias, at which point, yes. Tillman,
Burgundy?
still yes. D'Angelo Russell, I could take or leave at this point in time. I don't even know how to answer your question or if it's a question, but I think we hit on everybody.
Yeah. What to do. Play a lot of Tillman, play a lot of Dwight Howard, play a lot of Tobias Harris, play a lot of Xavier Tillman, I think we said. Don't fade Flynn, play him alongside Simmons and collect all the money. There you go.
Yeah, I have Flynn and Simmons as two of my top 3 plays today on FanDuel. I have Simmons, Trent, Flynn, and Harris as my top 4 plays on FanDuel.
These are good things. How are you getting to any Josh Jackson over on FanDuel? I'm well under the field on that number.
What we're getting to.
Okay. That's what I needed to know. I don't feel good about that whatsoever.
Let me give him an updated sim run and see where I actually have him popping up. But I don't get the sense that it's going to be to the tune of 33% ownership. Ruben Mitchell sending this super chat in US dollars like a clown. Bay and slow-mo or... I had to.
I like this Josh today. This Josh can stay around.
Ruben Mitchell, you didn't get the memo, man. Canadian.
Yeah.
I know. It's not. I'm with you. We got to be less amicable.
Yeah, we got to be assholes more. Edge it up.
Sadiq Bey and slow-mo or Michael Porter Jr. and Joe Harris in a FanDuel single entry.
Joe Harris just lost me there. So let's go not Joe Harris.
So Joe Harris is 3,900 on FanDuel today.
Let's play Joe Harris a lot. Again, I'm prioritizing my DK stuff right now as I'm flying through everything here. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of Joe Harris, but not anything substantial, letting it be known.
I liked him a lot more earlier today, but there's just enough value out there that he's not crazy. I have him as like a 7-ish% optimal guy. Clearly Michael Porter Jr. to me is the top small forward play. I have Sadiq Bey second. So this one's really tight for me, but I would go Porter and Joe Harris.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And by the way, Josh Jackson is showing up as my second most optimal shooting guard, but only around 18%. So I think that there is value to be had in a couple other shooting guards that aren't getting the ownership that Josh Jackson appears to be getting.
Good, because I have 10% of him, and he was coming in at a scary number that I did not want to play.
I just don't know. Like, he could play 30 minutes. I mean, he was out with a tooth injury. Like, I don't think that's slowing him down unless he could feel his heartbeat in his face. Oh, 1 minute to go until lock, everybody. So actually 20 seconds. If you don't have your lineups in yet, you're probably in trouble, but you should go ahead and put them in now. We made it, man. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. I was going to say the gods were nice to us. We got that news, 20 minutes before lock and an hour and 20 minutes before before that game started. So plenty of time for everybody to get 60% Dwight Howard today.
If you're still here, everybody, for the 2,500 that are here, if you have not hit that like button yet, please do so. Let's run that number up. We're in the 6s. Let's get that number north of 800. If we could do it, it makes me feel fantastic because we are locked. And that's it. We got no more shows. We got nothing else to talk about. I hope you're playing on Fanduel and I hope you're playing on Draftkings, but I really hope you are playing on No House Advantage with all of the free tools that we have. It was a fun show, man. I miss doing shows with you.
I miss doing shows with you too. Loco, why was today so bad? It was pretty chill, wasn't it, buddy? Oh, that's a bummer. But anyway,
that could have been way worse.
Great to see you. Great to see you as well. Check out his goodies that he's got going with in the mornings. Check out the goodies Rinpack and I are doing. We'll be done on Friday. So Slate Starter podcast. It's over at the end of the week.
Brokenhearted. That's good stuff. It's the perfect way to start out your day. Listen to that with a cup of coffee, but keep that cup of coffee and then come watch the process show. Good luck tonight, everybody. I'll talk to you again, and Eric will talk to you again for tomorrow. Bye.